An entitled family tries to steal my dog right out from underneath me while I'm at a public park, claiming that they not only deserve it, but also that there's nothing I can do about it, leaving me incredibly panicked and not sure what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, I want to start off by saying that I'm heated. And no, it has nothing to do with the rising temperatures. Like, this is absolutely infuriating that these types of people actually exist. For some context, I have two dogs, a 14-year-old Chihuahua and a 4-year-old Cheagle. I decided to take them to a nearby park to let them get some fresh air, as they've been laying around pretty much all week, and I figured that they could do well with the exercise. So I grab a few treats, a gallon of water, and their favorite ball and stuffed toy. We hop into the car and then we head out. The day is quite nice, not too hot, but definitely starting to get warmer, and I figure that we could do a nice lunch when we get back. We get to the park and there's a few people there. It seems like there's two families and a couple of people playing volleyball not too far away. So I park, I find a nice big empty spot with plenty of running space, and I let the girls just run loose. We're playing around for a good 5 minutes at this point, and I'm trying to keep my balance with my walking cane so they don't knock me over as they run back towards me and into my legs like I'm a bowling pin. For the sake of the story, I'll call my Chihuahua Jay and my Cheagle Charlie. I will note that Charlie really, and I mean really, likes to play. We're talking with anyone, everyone, anything, and everything. And that's mainly my father's part of spoiling and coddling her as a pup when she was only 2 months old. She was never disciplined, she was spoiled with human food so much that she wouldn't eat regular dog or puppy food. She disobeys you, rarely listens when you call her name, etc. She's always wagging her tail so much for whatever reason that her entire hips shake and she'll get exhausted from just being happy. Anyways, at some point, there are some kids running around at a jungle gym nearby, laughing and playing and doing as kids do, and some adults that are trying to gather them all up and load them into their van. Well, Charlie sees this and decided, hey, that looks fun. I like fun. I'm gonna go have fun, and decides to run off and join in, while my other dog Jay is chilling in the grass next to her water ball and stuffed toy. So I call out to Charlie, walking towards her, whistling and snapping my fingers to try and get her to come back, but it's no dice. She keeps moving and reaches the family, running around happily between everyone's feet like a cat with zoomies, whose life goal is to trip everyone it sees. The family's almost loaded up into the van, and one kid stops and bends down to pet Charlie. I'm thinking, oh good, they stopped her from running off, and I keep walking. The mom of the group is buckling a kid into the seat and turns around to notice, looks up at me and then back at Charlie, and then picks her up and puts her in the kid's arms. She then closes the car door and ushers her kid to the other side, hurrying them to get inside of the car. I'm then close enough to hear her say, go, go, right now. I then yell out and I say, hey, stop, that's my dog. And I weeble wobble as fast as I can towards the car. Out of the car steps who I assume is the father and maybe an uncle. Now, I'm really not sure, as it was an older gentleman with gray hair, and the father steps in front of me and puts his hand on my chest, stopping me right in my tracks. And this is where things really start to get weird. Now, because I was walking fast, the sudden stop almost causes me to fall backwards, but luckily I maintain my balance. The dad looks at me and says, well, hey now, that's far enough. I look at him and I say, that's my dog. She literally just took my dog. And I'm shouting at this point, making sure I get the attention of anyone else around. The person who I can assume is the uncle starts wagging his finger in my face and says, no, no, no. He is ours. We found him. We adopted him legally. The father then looked at him and said, you stop, be quiet. Now the mother is on the other side of the car watching us, holding her kid's shoulder, still not inside the car. I looked at him and I said, if you like that finger, you'll keep it out of my face. Give me back my dog. The uncle then waves his hand at me and scoffs, with the father saying, that is not your dog, and he can put his finger wherever he wants. He then jabs his finger right in my chest. Now at this point, I take a step back and I lift my cane up and I say, don't let this thing fool you. Give me back my dog now. Now as reference, I'm by no means intimidating. I'm 5'7" and I wobble around with a cane. The father is a foot taller than me, and despite having a beer belly, he still had some muscles on his arms. The mother then shouts from the other side of the car, you already have a dog. We like this one. My kid deserves it. Look, she's so cute. But I just scream at them, give me back my dog. The father then says, you better get your dog and get out of here before you get hurt, little man. Now my other dog Jay had made her way over and is standing a few feet behind me. I call for my dog to go to the car and she thankfully turns around and heads that way. At that point, an older and younger woman come up from behind the uncle, who was now standing silent this entire time but standing over on the side. The younger woman then says, hey, no, that's not right. We had been here when you arrived and you didn't have the dog. He did, and the young woman pointed at me. The father then looks at the uncle and says, "Get in the car." The uncle complies and gets in, and the father takes Charlie from her kid's arm and sets her on the ground. The kid says, "Oh, bye doggy, you're cute." And Charlie runs away to join Jay at my car, but not before running to pick up her ball and Jay's stuffed toy at the same time, falling and running back to the car empty-handed. The uncle then looks at me and says, "We better not see you around or you're gonna get messed up." Now at this point, I bite my tongue and I set my cane down, glaring at them as they get in their car and drive off, with the two women still standing next to me. Once the family is gone, the two ask if I'm alright and if I need anything. I say no and I thank them for stepping in, while also apologizing to them for having to step in at all. With all of it being said and done, I head back to my dogs and I pick up their stuff, and I'm back into the car and I head back home. I'm now currently in my room in bed, slightly shaking with fear, anger, I don't know, but I'm just glad that things didn't escalate any further. Right now, Jay is stepping all over my chest, and Charlie threw a rawhide at my face, so I really think that overall things are just gonna work out. Dude, I cannot imagine going through that. If someone tried to steal my dog, I think I would get violent. Like seriously, I think anyone can agree with that. Like I would lose my mind. There's no way I would put up with that for a second. Thank God somebody was paying attention to that park, because those people very easily could have taken your dog and run off. Like it's a miracle they stepped up and defended you. Seriously. I'm so sorry that happened to you. Like I can only imagine how stressful that must have been. I know I would have been so furious with these people if they really tried to steal my dog. But I think in the future, next time, just make sure you have leashes of some kind, because like clearly your dogs need to be on them. But regardless, this should not have happened in the first place. And the fact that they really try to run off with your dogs, in my opinion, is absolutely insane. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. A group of entitled truck drivers think that they can cut through my emergency lane like it's no big deal, resulting in me having to put these grown men in their place in a way that they truly were not expecting. Here's how it happened. So I worked at a guard shack for a distribution center. My job was to direct and process all incoming and outbound traffic and paperwork. Most semi-truck drivers are paid by the mile, so I had some empathy for their time and tried to do my job as efficiently and pleasantly as possible. That being said, when it's busy, it is busy. It took me roughly 2 minutes to process the paperwork and check the information of each truck, which I don't think is too bad, but container haulers are a bit of a different story. They pick up shipping containers at the rail yard, drop them off at the distribution center, and most of the time grab an empty one to take back to the yard. They rinse and they repeat over and over again. So I saw these same guys several times a day, roughly every hour or so while they were fulfilling their quota for the day. They get paid by the hour and they know the drill. Now on each side of the guard shack, there are 2 lanes. 2 lanes for inbound and 2 lanes for outbound. The outbound lane on both sides is usually blocked with a traffic cone because those are emergency lanes. We keep them clear in case there is an emergency on the lot and we need to give quick access to ambulances or fire trucks, which in my 7 years of working there had happened on my shift alone more times than you would think. Every once in a while, a maintenance man or a guard would move those cones for some reason or another, and just like bees to honey, the truckers would try to use those lanes. And you know the whole saying where it's like monkey see, monkey do. And now there's a whole line of trucks I've got to sort and back up, and if I saw it coming, I would have stopped what I was doing and politely directed them to the correct lane and put the cone back in place. If it was an accident because they didn't know any better, no harm, no foul. But when it comes to the shipping container guys, they know better. And like I said, they get paid by the hour. Every now and then, I would be super busy with a long line of trucks to process and a shipping container hauler who has a bobtail, and that basically means no trailer attached to his truck, who would pull into the emergency lane and expect me to open the gate for them so that they could cut the line like it was their own personal express lane. But it's like absolutely not. Not only will allowing that put my job at risk, it will become a fully active lane as all the other truckers will follow suit, which means I can't get and give the paperwork I need to handle over there. I have no access to my computer and printer out there, and if there is an incident, emergency services can't respond in a timely manner. And like I said, I'm already slammed. Running back and forth to the out lanes makes everything take double the amount of time. So when truckers would purposefully pull up there, I would just ignore them. If I saw it in time, I would jump out and place a cone behind them to stop other people from doing the same thing, and then I would prioritize the truckers playing by the rules, all the while ignoring the container guy who is honking, waving his arm, pointing at the gate to get my attention, and only after clearing the lanes would I walk over and explain that they are going to have to back up and get in the proper lane. And if I hadn't caught it in time, I would proceed to direct everyone who was foolish enough to get behind the bozo to back up and get into the proper lane. I'd put the cone back in place and met everyone back at the guard shack with a friendly smile, even if they were just a bit toxic after that. But I guess it wasn't an express lane after all, and you just wasted a good chunk of your time and some of your pride for acting entitled. Okay, I like this story for a few reasons, and just hear me out. For me, it really sheds a light on the people who work at a job regularly and know the rules, but still somehow feel that the rules don't apply to them. And the shipping container guys absolutely fit the bill. They know they can't go in that lane, but they're like, wait, it's open, let's go through it anyways. And for me, I can't stand working with people like that because it's like, dude, come on, there are rules for a reason. And worst of all, you know the rules and you're still trying to break them. So yeah, if I was in the original poster shoes, I would also be super frustrated dealing with this, especially when it comes to people who absolutely know better. Am I the jerk for not buying one of my friends a ticket to a music festival, all because at the time that I bought them, we were not on speaking terms? Because right now she's pissed off that I didn't think of her, and at this point, I don't know what to do. Here's what went down. Okay, for a bit of context, me and my friend used to be super close. She was my first real friend after moving a lot in elementary school, and that lasted all the way until she met her now ex-boyfriend, who we will call Max for the sake of the story. I really liked them together at first until I noticed that slowly, he was becoming more controlling over her and isolating her from our whole friend group, especially from me. He would tell her that I was a sinful person for having slept with my long-term boyfriend before marriage, which I did once, not that it matters, and that she should no longer hang out with me. She also went around telling the whole school I slept with my boyfriend, which is pretty personal. Nevertheless, I was still trying to be a good friend, so I warned her multiple times, but she said Max was doing this out of love and only wanted what was best for her. But I knew this wasn't right, and I even told her older siblings who agreed with me, and her parents who liked him a lot more because Max was seen as a holy man, but nothing could keep them apart, so I slowly stopped hanging out with her because he wouldn't let her, and she just agreed that this was right. Well, fast forward a few months and they've broken up, and my 18th birthday is coming up. For my birthday, I asked for tickets to a music festival and only that. My awesome mom got them a few months prior and said that I could bring whoever I wanted. At the time the tickets were purchased, my friend was not talking to me, and I figured that Max wouldn't want her to come along. However, since Max was out of the picture, she wanted to be friends again and come with me. Mind you, she only knows one of the artists at the festival, but after talking things out with her, I told her that I would be open to being friends again, and I said that she could come with us if she purchased her own ticket. Well, when I said that, this got her pissed, because the other two didn't have to pay for their ticket. I then explained that these tickets were bought like 5 months ago and we weren't on speaking terms at that time. She told me that she obviously was not in the right headspace with her controlling ex, and now that she is, she wanted to come along. We ended up going back and forth for a while, before she ended up leaving me on red, and that was pretty much the end of it. Later, I found out that she went to our school counseling department and apparently accused me of bullying and excluding her. I explained the situation to the counseling department and they understood and told her this was my choice. Now, since this happened about 7 to 8 months ago, we are no longer on speaking terms, but still I am curious, am I the jerk at all in this situation? Because right now I don't know what to do. No, you're not the jerk at all, your friend's an idiot. She turned her back on you when you needed her the most and then tries to be like, oh, I'm back, please buy me a music ticket. It's like, no lady, that's not how this works. You literally turned your back on me all because your stupid boyfriend said so. Like, she sacrificed an entire friendship just to be with some idiot guy, who, by the way, surprise, surprise, ended up breaking up with her. But for me, the icing on the cake is the fact that she went to the school and is like, oh, she's bullying me, she's excluding me, I can't believe this. Like, that really shows you're dealing with a complete idiot, and honestly, you're better off without her. So no, you are not the jerk because this lady sounds incredibly dumb. Today, I got my supervisor demoted, all because I showed up to work in a really snazzy suit, causing him to suddenly become just a normal employee overnight. Here's how it all went down. Okay, I want to start off by saying that I'm posting this mainly because I'm not a passive-aggressive type of person, but I'm honestly in disbelief that this actually worked. Ever since I started at my job a few months ago, my supervisor, who we will call Josh for the sake of the story, has been constantly micromanaging me. When I'm the subject of criticism, which is often, I try to give him the benefit of the doubt and ask him to clarify. What are your expectations? What specifically should I have done differently? But Josh's responses are always vague, often something to the effect of, oh, just do better. I even had a meeting with Josh and Human Resources to address this, but to no avail. Yesterday, Josh comes to my desk to tell me that I need to dress better. Now, I work at a small company, and the vibe is usually casual. A not insignificant number of people come to work wearing jeans, hoodies, t-shirts, and or baseball caps. I have never worn a hat to work, and I make a point of wearing a button-up shirt with a collar every single day. But this particular day, I was wearing a long-sleeve button-up flannel, chino pants, and Adidas Gazelles. Other days, I wear loafers and dress shirts that are tucked in. So I asked Josh to clarify. Should I be wearing dress shoes or a dress shirt? Does it need to be tucked in? What specifically do you want me to change? Well, Josh tells me I I just need to dress better, and that I should talk to human resources for clarification. So I go and do just that, and I ask what the dress code is. And in response, I just get a standard answer: pants with closed-toe shoes, no sleeveless shirts, etc. I then ask, have I ever worn anything to work that poses a problem? And human resources says, no, you're totally fine. Well, because I'm mad and because my repeated efforts to resolve this kind of problem have gone unheeded, I decided that I need to be a little bit petty. So today I showed up to work in a full suit. It's one I keep for events like weddings, so it's fitted and I look really sharp in it. It's also wildly and conspicuously overdressed for the office I work in. I had several interactions with people coming to my desk to comment on my outfit and ask what the occasion was. When anyone asked me, I told them that I had been told to dress better, and this was always met with disbelief. 2 people even said they liked the way I dress normally. When anyone asked me who the order came from, again, only if they asked, I told them that it came from Josh. Now, I was expecting to pull my little stunt for a week just to prove a point, and then go back to wearing what I had been wearing before. Word then got around the office fast, apparently, because the CEO, namely Josh's direct boss, came to my desk later in the day to tell me I would be reporting to him now, and that he would be having a talk with Josh about this and other issues. It's important to note that I was Josh's only underling, so he effectively went from being a supervisor to just a regular employee. I'm now on a bit of a high, and I think I'm gonna come to work tomorrow wearing a different one of my flannels. Dude, I love this so much because, my god, Josh is an idiot. All he had to do was be more specific about what he wanted you to wear, and all of this could have been avoided. But now he got demoted, and honestly, that is so satisfying. Like, I really love that. So good for you for making this happen, because from the sounds of it, it seems like Josh kinda needed this to happen, as I don't think he was cut out to be a supervisor in the slightest. My boyfriend cheated on me while he was on vacation and literally ruined our relationship. So I decided to get some revenge by moving in with his family and turning all of them against him. And I'm honestly so satisfied with the way things went down. Here's what happened. So when I was around 19 or 20 years old, adulting had come early. I was living alone and self-supporting for 2 years by then. It wasn't great, as I was living in some really awful bedsits, and I had a full-time job and 2 part-time jobs to remain solvent. Well, a handsome acquaintance caught my eye, but I was surrounded by gorgeous friends who all fancied him. He was good looking, but it turned out that I was his type, and I fell hard and fast. I really admired him too. He was only 4 years older than me, he had a trade and a good job, and had bought his own flat. From the start, he let me know that he and his friends had booked and planned a trip, literally halfway across the world for 4 months at the end of that year. I was miserable thinking about it, but happy he was going on this longed-for experience. In the meantime, I was introduced to his family and got along well. The younger brother and sister live with mom, and I fit right in. His mom got me a part-time job with her starting when he left the country, and we went on holiday together while he was away. Now, this was before mobile phones, so I waited on postcards and the odd call from a phone box that only lasted a minute. All seemed to be going well until about 2.5 months into his trip. He called and said that he had missed me too much and was coming home. I was delighted, but I thought it was strange, as it seemed completely out of nowhere. He then returns, but after a few days, he's behaving strangely. Well, long story short, he cheated on me while he was away and had been in contact with her ever since his return. He wanted to try dating her, and we were just completely over. And while I was devastated, I did hide it well. I remained in contact with his family, and I saw his mom at our part-time job. 2 weeks later, my landlord gave me notice as the building was being sold, and I shared this with his mom. She then asked if I wanted to rent her spare bedroom. The rent would be helpful, and we all enjoyed each other's company, and I needed somewhere to live. I also had a devilish thought about how uncomfortable it would be for my ex to literally bring his new girlfriend to meet his family with me there. So you know what? I moved in, and he found out literally after the fact, and trust me, he was not happy. But it was made worse at Christmas when my dad and I were invited to their family Christmas dinner. He eventually lost his mind and gave them an ultimatum, either him or me. And you know what? They kindly chose me, as I was their roommate, and as I had no problem sharing a table with him. Christmas was funny as he sulked, drank, and disappeared to call his angry girlfriend. She, of course, was unhappy that he was having dinner with me and was giving him grief, which led to them having an argument and then brought on more sulking and drinking. By the time my dad had gone home and the others had gone to bed, he was feeling no pain and decided to chance his luck with me. But I just laughed at him and I told him that I wasn't interested. He then started complaining that I was making his life miserable and that this was his family and not mine. So I told him that I was going to be living there for at least a full year, and that, you know what, my plan all along was to cause him pain, grief, and inconvenience, as he wouldn't be able to bring his affair partner to the family home. I then left the room with a parting comment, telling him that maybe he would think twice before cheating in the future, because payback is definitely going to suck. Okay, I love this story so much. Like, seriously, good for you for getting this kind of revenge. This guy absolutely absolutely deserves it. He went on vacation to cheat on you. Like, that is such a low thing to do. And then he tries to act like, oh, you guys need to choose between her or me. And it's like, oh, okay, we're gonna choose her. Yeah, she's our roommate, but I bet the underlying thing is like, yeah, well, you're a cheater, so we're not gonna make you any kind of priority. And it's honestly really cool to see that your ex's family is really cool with you. Even going as far as offering you like a place to stay and a room to rent. Like, that's really cool in my opinion. So overall, this is some fantastic payback, and I love the fact that you told him this was your plan all along, because the way he wronged you, in my opinion, deserves to be punished. A crazy demon Karen gets angry at a Taco Bell employee, all because she didn't have enough money for $2 chips. And after screaming for a manager and making a massive scene, this Karen gets so mad that she launches a chair out into the parking lot in a fit of rage. And I'm honestly still blown away by this interaction, and I hope I never have to deal with her ever again. Here's what happened. So just the other day, my dad and I went up to an IKEA to get some furniture for my new room, and we stopped off by Taco Bell for lunch. My dad got me to run in and get some food for us, so I went in and placed my order and was starting to fill up my drinks when the demon Karen entered the restaurant. She went up to the front register and slammed down a cup with a few coins in it, demanding, or at least what I presume she was going on about, some $2 chips. After getting denied about not having enough cash with her, she asked all the customers, including me, if she can have some money. Well, as you can probably imagine, everyone stayed silent and just stared at her. So after complaining a little bit, she then says, "This is Taco Bell, a multi-million-dollar company. They had better comply with my request." And it was at that moment she did the only thing that her species does in distress. She demanded to speak to a manager. But here's the thing. The person she was arguing with the entire time was the manager herself. At this point, the demon Karen lost her mind. She screamed at the manager for her chips, and then for some reason, she turned around and gave me the dirtiest look for some reason. I mean, I'm just standing over here filling up my drinks. I was so confused. She then turned back to the manager and said it has been 15 minutes and that she's demanding they give her free food. But obviously, the manager said no. Now, my food was ready at this point, so I was about to collect it and was gonna go back to where I was. But before I could even do that, she tried to take my food, but thankfully, another employee took my food before she could get it. And once that happened, this demon Karen stormed outside in anger. After she was gone, the employees apologized for the inconvenience. I collected my food, and then I went outside to my dad. And just as I'm exiting the door, this entitled Karen was on her way back inside. I got in the car and I told my dad about what just happened, and just as we were about to leave, a chair was literally thrown into the parking lot. We sat there staring at this for a few minutes, all before we decided to leave in absolute fear. And hopefully we never have a run-in with this demon Karen ever again. Okay, I will never understand why people get upset at fast food restaurants, especially at a place like Taco Bell. Look, if you like Taco Bell, that's fine, but the only reason I would ever go there is because I literally have no other options in life. Like, there better be no other food available within like a 5-mile radius for me to go into that restaurant. Again, if you like Taco Bell, good for you. But for me, it's just not my cup of tea. So for this demon Karen to storm into Taco Bell and freak out, all over $2 chips, like, that is crazy to me. Like, there is no reason to act like that. And I also just can't imagine not having enough money for $2 chips and then taking it out on the manager all because you don't have your stuff together. And the fact that they threw a chair into the parking lot over this, like, this is what set you off. Like, really? Like, God knows I've had my own stresses in life, but I don't think I'll ever get to the point where I'm like catapulting chairs through a Taco Bell parking lot. So I think the silver lining here is at least you got your food at the end of the day, and that demon Karen was not able to like take it from you before you could run off with it. Because clearly not getting those $2 chips absolutely unhinged her. And I know if I was in that situation, I would be speeding off in fear as well. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for ignoring my husband during our flight when he expressed anxiety over flying? Because right now he's upset with me and he simply won't let it go. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 33-year-old female and I recently married my husband, and we took a 3-hour flight to Mexico for our honeymoon. Now, I fly a lot for my job, so I've racked up a lot of miles. My husband isn't a big fan of flying, though he has gotten better and tends to just hold my hand and close his eyes during takeoff and during landing. And he's mostly okay when he's in the air. When I booked our flights, I requested to use my points if an upgrade to business class became available, but I made it clear I only wanted this upgrade if 2 seats became available, and then I basically forgot about it. Then comes the day for our flight, and I was so excited for this trip. I checked us in online, all was going well, and then when we go to board, the person scanning our boarding passes stops us. She says it seems that my husband was upgraded to business class, but only him, and asked if that's okay. I immediately say no. We are on our honeymoon and we would like to stay together. But then my husband jumps in and says, "No, it's fine, I'll go to business class." I look at him in complete shock, and he tells me that I fly all the time, and I have been in business class before, but he hasn't, so he deserves a chance to experience it for himself. I see we are holding up the line, so I feel like I just need to agree and get on the plane. Now, to say that I'm upset is an understatement. He is all smiles, taking his seat, and I go back to my seat where they sit me next to an old woman with a baby on her lap, where my husband should be sitting. Within maybe 5 or 10 minutes of sitting there, trying to hold back tears because my husband left me alone on our flight during our honeymoon and uses my points for his upgrade no less, he starts to text me saying he feels anxious over flying, but I just ignore the text messages and stop looking at my phone. Within maybe an hour after we're in the air, he comes to the back of the plane to find me, offers me half of his business class breakfast, and asks me why I was ignoring him, that he was scared and needed me to tell him that it'd be okay since I'm such an experienced flyer. I told him that maybe he should have thought about that before leaving me alone before our honeymoon even really began. He gets angry and tells me that this may be the only time he gets to fly business class, and he was giving me half his breakfast to make up for it, so I could at least be supportive of his genuine fear. Well, I just roll my eyes sarcastically and I say thanks, and he just goes back to his seat. When we landed, I tried to move on and forget about it so that we could just enjoy our honeymoon, but he guilt-tripped me about not comforting him via text messaging before takeoff, and now I'm wondering if I'm being unreasonable and should have just let him enjoy his time in business class and ensure him that it'd be okay. So honestly, am I the jerk? Because seriously, right now, I am not sure what to do. No, I do not think you're the jerk at all. Your husband jumped at the chance to be in business class, even though you made it very clear that it's either both of us or none of us. He willingly used your miles just to get up there, and in my opinion, that's really inconsiderate. Like, I can completely understand why you would be upset, because I think if I was in your shoes, I would be upset as well. Like, he made a very selfish and questionable decision on this particular instance, and it really threw you under the bus. And you know what? I don't blame you for ignoring the text messaging, because the way you felt in this moment was completely justified. And if he seriously wanted you to comfort him during this flight, then he should have stayed in the back with you instead of going up to business class. Because in my opinion, that is incredibly selfish, and I really think that this was an unfair thing for him to do. An angry old jerk is furious with me when I don't let him into my store literally an hour before we open. And despite my best efforts to try and explain to him how this business operates, he simply refused to listen, making my life a living nightmare as he hobbled away, claiming that I just lost a customer. And honestly, I'm so done with entitled jerks like this, and I seriously hope I never see that guy ever again. Here's what happened. Okay, I want to start off by saying that this just happened earlier today. I'm the store manager at a department store, and I pulled up to the store before any of my associates about an hour or so before opening. I park a little ways away from the entrance to allow closer parking for our guests, and I notice an older gentleman standing off to the side of our building, which is about 300 feet away from the entrance. This is nothing unusual per se, as this is a retirement city, and the retirees with nothing better to do just ramble around the town on their golf carts and frequent the little shops around the area. So I finish my coffee, open the door, and begin walking to the entrance to open it. I noticed the guy was starting to walk my way, but didn't think anything of it because people pass by all the time, even this early in the morning. I unlock the door, step inside, and then I shut it. Then I began walking to the back of the store. About halfway to the back, I hear a slam of the doors, as if someone is trying to open them while they're locked. I turn around and it's the same guy. I cautiously walk back to the entrance, scoping him out to make sure he isn't homeless or someone trying to rob me. And by the time I get to the front, he's got his face on the glass with both his hands cupping over his eyes just to help him see inside. But that's only because none of the lights are on yet, except for the emergency lights, as I don't turn them on until closer to opening. After clearing him for threats, I open the door and begin to ask if I can help him with anything, as he immediately begins to brush past me to presumably enter. I obviously stop him and explain that we aren't open yet, and that we will be opening in just a little over an hour. Well, he looks at me in disbelief. He says to me, "What do you mean? I just watched you unlock the door and walk in." And when he said that, I chuckled just a little bit, assuming this was just some kind of awful dad joke, which seemed to only make him more upset. I then explained to him that I'm here to open the store and get it ready for guests to shop in. He then asks me what there even is to get ready, and then tells me if he needs to buy anything, I can just check him out. At this point, I'm still in disbelief, but I try not to let that influence guiding him through this tough time in his life, and I go ahead and tell him how I need to open up the cash registers. I need to count money drawers and make sure any guest accessible areas are free of clutter and racks and all this other stuff, along with office tasks and checking the emails for any merchandise updates. But he responds with an eloquently stated, "Oh, I don't care about all that. Explain to me why everybody else is open right now then." I looked across our parking lot to the hardware store he was pointing at and simply told him that we just have different business hours. Some people get up early to do their home projects, but not as early to shop for clothing and shoes. He tells me they probably would shop that early if we opened sooner. Now, I've learned to not argue with idiots, so I just tell him the store hours are set by corporate and that we have no control over when we open. After a few more crazy comments that prove his lack of understanding how businesses work, and me trying to be as polite as I possibly can, he ends his performance by throwing his hands up in the air and saying to me, "That doesn't make any sense. None of it does, and you're losing customers like this, and you just lost me as a customer." He then just walks away, but honestly, whatever. Again, there are literally no other cars in the parking lot. Even he didn't even park there. All of the store lights were off, and our second entrance's storm door was still down. In no way would any right mind think that we're open, and then to argue with me over normal business procedures is just crazy to me. This is not the interaction I've had, but honestly, I wanted to share this just to get this off of my mind. Wow, that guy was a complete jerk. Like, not only is he there way before opening, but he's also making the biggest deal out of this possible. Like, seriously, it's just a store. You can't like go get breakfast and then come back, or even like, I don't know, be more reasonable in some kind of way, because this behavior is like super weird, and it honestly is completely uncalled for. This next story came from the Am I the Jerk subreddit. Check the links in the description if you would like to submit your own story. Am I the jerk for being angry at my best friend, all because she replaced me and tried to flirt with my close friend just to hurt me? Because right now, I am still incredibly hurt by this, and at this point, I really don't know what to do. Okay, so for a bit of context, I'm still in high school, and this happened about a year ago. During my time there, I was extremely short, and I mean like extremely short. And that was just genetics, and I would inevitably grow, but nonetheless, I had always thought it was my source of all of my problems, ever since people wouldn't talk to me as a pre-teenager, and that really affected my body image. I eventually did get friends, but even then, pretty much every day, they would mock me for being shorter than everyone else. But around September 2 years ago, I met a friend who was funny, kind, and never called me any names, which made me respect them far more, and in turn, want to be around them. They were also a girl, and since I'm attracted to girls, she helped me through so much by not calling me names, and as a result, I naturally developed feelings for her. We communicated every single day, even staying up until midnight in some cases, no matter if it was a weekday or not, and with the way we talked, I was sure she also liked me. We quickly became best friends and would do everything together, and I mean everything. I constantly went to her house and I ate with her instead of my previous toxic friends. But around 6 to 7 months ago, a new girl came into my school, let's call her Michelle, that's not her real name, and being the nice person that she is, or rather she was, she helped them around the school and invited her to eat with us. Now, I had no problem with this. I figured the more the merrier, and I was happy to have another non-toxic friend, but I soon realized that the tone in her voice and the way she was acting seemed like she was almost trying to replace me. Now, this is not me being jealous, because soon enough, she would speak to me spitefully, such as saying that she didn't care if I couldn't come to her house, or blatantly and deliberately walking off with her and trying to leave me behind. She would also constantly mention that she missed Michelle during conversations and would also act bored around me. Soon enough, it was like she was trying to ditch me, hurrying away from me to talk to her and leaving me standing in mid-conversation and completely ignoring me during breaks. Now, just to clarify, this is no fault of Michelle. She's a wonderful person that has no fault in this and would later become a good friend of mine. Anyways, it was clear to me as well that if I wanted to confess to her, I would have to do it soon, as she herself claimed that our friendship lost our spark. While confessing in a nice way, she told me something that I will never forget. She told me that she added a tally to guys who liked her. She hurt me so badly, seeing as all of those guys just came up to her one day and asked her out, whereas I took years to develop emotions for her. She then proceeded to decline me, later claiming that she never liked me and those flirting sessions were just friendliness. The heartbreak that I felt was horrible. After that, she made it an excuse to stop talking to me. All of this was happening while someone I knew had just passed away and a close friend having their tongue removed due to cancer. I was so young to be dealing with all of this, and it was the worst experience of my entire life. My mental health was awful, and at the same time, I was still mentally growing and dealing with all of of this at the same time. I tried telling my best friend this, but she straight up told me that she did not care, and I was so devastated. Then something happened that would make me fume. She started flirting with an extremely close friend right in front of me. This is not her friendly way of speaking. This was her changing her voice to a high pitch and also giving off genuine flirtatious looks. I was considering some dark things at the time, and the thing is, she's still doing it. She's still flirting with him, and it appears that I can't be around Michelle either, because if she sees us together, she grabs her and asks, "Oh my god, where have you been?" As well as her saying stuff like, "Why did you go to him?" I want to tell my close friend that she is not actually interested, because I can firsthand tell you that she's not truly interested in him, and that Michelle is in a controlling friendship, but I feel like it's not my place and that I just can't do it. And I'm also just still processing this whole ordeal. So that of course leaves the question, am I the jerk for being jealous with my former best friend? Because right now I seriously don't know what to do. Wow, I really think you need to find new friends. This lady sounds awful. She very clearly doesn't like you, which is like whatever, that's totally fine. But for her to almost go out of her way to try and make you feel horrible, while also like denying you the chance to be friends with people around you, and almost making a show of the fact that she doesn't like you but she likes your friend, like that is an entirely different level of toxic that truly you do not deserve that in the slightest. You don't deserve to be treated that way. And honestly, I think it would be in your best interest to just move on and find anybody else to be around. And I totally get where you're coming from. You feel jealous that she's flirting with other people, but you really need to understand that she is not a good person. This is not a good friend, and clearly she was only using you for some kind of attention, and it seemed like she didn't have any kind of like genuine bone in her body. And yes, that is hard to hear, but I think it would be better to accept that now so you can eventually move on and find people who actually do care about you, because this lady does not care about you at all, and I think that you absolutely deserve better friends who actually care about you. My partner's siblings has treated me like garbage, constantly saying terrible things about me, painting me as an awful narcissistic girlfriend, despite the fact that I've not done anything to them. And now one of his older siblings is getting married, and he feels like he's forced to go. And right now I'm deciding that I'm gonna stay home and stay away from this situation, as I simply do not want to be around these toxic people. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So about a year ago, my partner's two older sisters sent me text messages that they were no longer interested in having a relationship with me and decided to cut off communication completely. Like literally one day they just never answered the phone ever again. As a result, they've almost completely lost touch with my partner and our kids because I was the one who maintained communication and shared photos and sent gifts. I mean, we had a good relationship. They live a plane ride away, but we talked on the phone pretty regularly, saw each other a couple times a year, and enjoyed holidays together. In fact, last spring, I hosted a party for my partner's grad school graduation and party, and I definitely invited them as well. But they resented that I didn't include them in the planning process and said that they couldn't come. I reached out to the oldest sister who I was particularly close with and offered to eliminate basically any barrier to them coming, including paying for their traveling or flying him out there over the summer to celebrate with them separately. But I did it in the most no pressure fashion, literally saying that of course you don't have to have any reason at all for not coming. Sometimes these things just don't work out. You have to honor and do what is right for you, and I love you. Well, his read on it now is that they didn't care enough or just didn't want to come, and then felt like they looked guilty when it became clear that they didn't have an excuse. So it created this huge conflict to deflect responsibility onto me. They then piled on all these other things that I had apparently done over the previous 5 years, which showed my true colors as some kind of crazy, narcissistic, awful girlfriend. They've built up this image of me in their heads that they know is completely contrary to who I am and will be shattered the second they see or talk to me again. So they just pretend I don't exist and speak their poison. I spent the better part of 8 months absolutely distraught over this. I come from a family where most anything can be worked out with a talk and a hug. It was incredibly painful to watch this turn from hours to weeks to months, all with no words being spoken to me. I tortured myself, racking my brain for anything I might have done to make them hate me, reviewing all the things I ever said to them, and trying to figure out how I could have said them differently, or maybe just apologizing, or giving them space, or reaching out. All of this until I eventually just gave up. He took the kids to his mom's to see them for a few hours around Christmas, and they've Zoomed with the kids maybe twice. Other than that, there's been no communication other than his mom sending us all emails that she had written with her therapist to try and mend things. Which then brings us to the current issue. His older sister sent a save the date for her wedding in June. We've been talking about it and working through this in therapy. Ultimately, I think he is leaning towards going because he would feel guilty if he didn't. He feels like if there's any hope at reconciliation in the future, they will just use the fact that he didn't go against him. And there's a part of both of us that feels like it's the right thing to do for the kids. As sickening as it is for me to make him go on a big trip alone and miss the kids' first time on a plane, I had to prioritize myself and say I could not go. I refused to put myself in the position of being somewhere I am not welcome. And honestly, as a people pleaser who is endlessly forgiving and generally avoids conflict, I'm proud of myself for doing it. I told him I can't go, but he should do what he feels is right. He took so long considering this that I finally said, it really seems like you can't in good conscience not go. So let's just decide you're going and move forward. Now, he hasn't booked a plane ticket or booked a hotel, and our whole summer is on hold because of another vacation conflict. And I'm also waiting to see if we're spending thousands of dollars on this trip. I finally told him today that I really need to know his decision, and he said to me, I need to know if you will hold it against me for going. Like an honest answer and not what you think I want to hear. Until now, I've tried to support his decision while honoring my truth. He knows how I feel, but he also knows we will be okay regardless of this decision, and that the same can't be said for his sisters. Now, me personally, I don't want him to go. I think it sends the message that it's fine for them to be totally cruel to me with no consequences, and that he is fine celebrating special occasions and holidays with his family without me from now on. It honestly just breaks my heart. I want him to put his foot down and say, if you can't treat the person I love like a human being and are fine trying to break up my family, then you are no longer a safe person for my children and me to be around. It also just makes no sense to me. Why would you go to the wedding of someone you're almost completely estranged from? I keep telling myself that family is family, and I would never not go to my brother's wedding. But my brother would never alienate my partner and be so cruel either. I don't know what I'm asking. I think I'm afraid I will hold it against him even though I don't want to. I feel like he wants me to make the decision for him, and that's just honestly pissing me off. I wish he would just say, I'm going to go, and I know that's going to be hard for you, and it's going to take some work between us, but I feel like it's the right decision. So seriously, has anyone been in a similar situation? And does anyone have any insight that would be helpful in some kind of way? What should I do? I think you need to tell your boyfriend everything you literally just said in this post. I completely understand where you're coming from, where you have extended family that treat you like garbage, who alienate you but then treat your partner like, oh yeah, nothing's wrong. But it's like, what are you talking about? Literally everything is wrong right now. So I think maybe talking to your partner and being like, hey, this is exactly how I feel, and maybe going into more detail of like your expectations for him, as well as like the rock and the hard place you both find yourself in. Like, I think that really would make a big difference in my opinion, because you said it yourself, the way these people are treating you is completely inappropriate, and hopefully this situation can get better sooner than later. My crazy entitled neighbor gets angry with me and my girlfriend after we try to talk to him about an issue that we have. Things got so bad that he even stated he was going to get violent with us, claiming that he can make our lives a living nightmare. And now me and my partner feel very stuck, as we are going to be in this lease for the next 5 months. And at this point, we seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so this just happened maybe about an hour ago, so it is still pretty fresh. All names in this story have been changed just for safety. I'm a 29-year-old male, and my partner, who's a 27-year-old female, moved in together in the summer of last year into a little neighborhood south of the city where we live. Now, it is mostly quiet and peaceful, that is, except for our neighbors. This man is 72 years old. He's retired with a Blue Lives Matter flag hanging on his flag post every single day, along with the state flag and the American flag. We generally don't mind too much as we keep to ourselves, but up until this point, we had a mostly friendly, albeit disingenuous friendship, since every time I talked to him, he would find some way to inject his weird political talking points into the conversation. He mentioned how he and a few of his buddies are ready to go down to the border and defend our country, how he wants to take a bulldozer to any unhoused encampments that he sees, specifically feeling the urge to say that people inside the tents should not be alive. So yeah, that's the kind of person that I get to deal with. Now, my partner's little brother also lives with us. He's 19 years old, he's in college, and he does DoorDash with his spare time. Once before, our neighbor has come over and hassled him when neither my partner nor I are home, and this is all over such weird stuff, such as leaves being knocked over in a bag, or even trash cans not being closed properly, or whatever else he feels the issue of the month is. My partner and I were running errands when my brother-in-law started texting us about how he came over and was very aggressively mad about the recycling bin being in the street for a full day after trash day. He was very uncomfortable with the situation, and when I got home, my partner and I went over there to see exactly what the issue was, just so we can prevent anything from happening in the future, and to make sure that he doesn't come hassle a teenager with these issues, and to just come to me and my partner directly. Now, we knocked on his door to try and calmly ask him not to do that, and to just bring up anything directly to me, since my brother-in-law is basically a child and shouldn't have to worry about any of this. My partner works at a smoke shop as a manager, and was able to pinpoint that he definitely was plastered immediately. When we started talking, he was getting visibly agitated that we came over to his house to try and figure out what the issue was, and he kept interrupting me while I was trying to explain why he can't come over and hassle my brother-in-law when we aren't home. At one point, my partner cut him off after he interrupted me, and he just lost it. He started getting confrontational with her, saying that she should watch her mouth when she's on his property, and that he can make our lives a lot harder, even leading to him making veiled threats of violence. Now, the conversation got extremely heated when he threatened to make our lives harder because we're currently renting and the landlord apparently is a friend of his. Now, here's the thing. He never has spoken to me like this, even when we've had our disagreements in the past about minimal things. But him being interrupted by a woman clearly just set him on fire. At one point, he even insulted us for renting instead of having purchased the house, even though we are actively saving for a house in a very expensive city, and accusing my partner of not having a degree. Now, he has never come at me with any of these kinds of insults before, so it honestly was very jarring. I have helped this guy multiple times with things such as carrying lumber for him to his truck, as well as helping him with planting and even giving him pastries I make at work, and he immediately goes on the aggressive when boundaries are set. We left the situation and called our landlord immediately to explain what happened, and needless to say, she was shocked because the neighbor and her aren't really good friends, and they haven't even spoken in months. And even when they do speak, it's about things like property line fence repair and stuff like that. We have 5 more months on this lease before we are out of this place, but I've never had a situation happen like this before. And now I'm concerned about him getting more unhinged and going out of his way to make our lives harder and just bothering us. And at this point, my partner and I seriously don't know what to do. Man, having a neighbor that's insane seriously is the worst. For me personally, my house is my safe haven. It's the one place where I want to get away from the crazy people of the world, and along with that, I just want to have normal neighbors. Having people who are intrusive or aggressive like the psychopath in this story seriously are just the worst things to deal with, because you always feel on edge, you're not sure what they're gonna do, and it's just always a problem no matter what. So in my opinion, as someone who has dealt with several bad neighbors in the past, it might be time to set up cameras around your property. I know if I was in your shoes, I would be talking to the landlord and say, hey, I don't feel safe around this guy, and I definitely want to have some kind of camera system. And the best thing about it is that these cameras, for the most part nowadays, are pretty easy to install. Like, you can literally have a doorbell that has a camera on it, and you can also sync up like other cameras around your property into that same system. And based on what you're describing, honestly, that might be a good idea. Also, if I was in your shoes, I would be going to the police. This guy literally said he was going to get violent with you guys. He was saying how he's going to make your life a living nightmare. Like, that kind of language is so disrespectful, and it is absolutely uncalled for. There's no good excuse for that, and you don't have to put up with that. So hopefully you can get out of there sooner than later, because this neighbor sounds like a nightmare. And I know if I was in your shoes, I would be miserable and absolutely not want to deal with this. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Would I be the jerk if I didn't have my sister be a bridesmaid at my future wedding? All because of the way she's treating me while I'm a bridesmaid in her wedding. Because right now I feel very upset, and at this point I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, to start things out, my sister is getting married in May. We always talked about having each other as a maid of honor since we are each other's only sister. But when she got engaged, she did not have me as her maid of honor and instead gave that spot to my sister-in-law. Now, I'm not gonna lie, it really hurt my feelings and I tried to accept it. She changed her mind a month later due to my parents throwing a fit, and now we're sharing the title of maid of honor. Then I had to plan the bachelorette, and I was planning it based off of what she was texting me that she wanted. However, my sister-in-law and my sister's future sister-in-laws fought me on every single choice that I made, claiming that she wanted the polar opposite, and when we all tried talking to her about it, she got mad we couldn't resolve it on our own. Eventually, the bachelorette comes around. I flew across the country to attend, and everyone completely ignored me at the bachelorette. None of the decor that I purchased was used, and the sister-in-laws took credit for the things that I had done for the trip. The first night, I went to tell my sister and other girls in the hot tub to turn the volume volume down to avoid a $500 noise violation fine from the Airbnb, and my sister says, "Ignore her, she's such a jerk," which really hurt a lot because I put a lot of effort into the trip. The next day, I offered to do a coffee run while they were at the first bar because I didn't feel like drinking yet and I needed a coffee. Well, in the 10 minutes that I was gone, they took the one and only group picture from the trip without me present. I also found out that day that it was my sister who told my parents that I was bisexual last year without my permission, and I never wanted them to know since they don't agree with that. When I said how upset I was, she just said to me, "You probably snitched on me for something and you just deserved it." After the Bachelorette, I was incredibly upset, and when I tried talking to her about it, she only apologized by saying, "I'm sorry you feel that way," and tried to defend her actions but never actually said she was sorry for hurting me. I have barely heard from her ever since. And I also found out recently all the bridesmaids are getting their nails done together for the wedding, and I was not told about this at all. When I talked to my sister about it, she went on to say, "Well, I didn't know you were actually flying back," which she very easily could have texted me to ask me about that. Now, this leaves me debating if I'm the jerk for what I'm planning on doing. I know I'm getting engaged in the very near future, maybe next month I think, and I just don't know if I want her to be in the bridal party at all. She has been mean to our entire family in her wedding planning process, and she has not made an effort to contribute to a relationship with me in the last few years. She doesn't even know what state I live in, even though I've lived here for years. So I really need to know, would I be the jerk if I don't have her as a bridesmaid in my bridal party once I get engaged? Because honestly, I'm feeling very frustrated, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Yeah, I don't blame you for feeling this way at all, because it sounds like your sister is being super toxic to you for like no reason. She's completely ignoring how you feel and almost like going out of her way to throw you under the bus, and she's excluding you from everything going on in the wedding itself. Like, if I was in your shoes, I might even be questioning if I want to be in this bridal party at all. So no, in my opinion, you are not the jerk for feeling upset about this, and I don't blame you for being upset too, by the way, because the way your sister's acting is honestly uncalled for, and I would not fault you for a minute if you decided that you don't want her as a bridesmaid in your future wedding. Am I the jerk for refusing to babysit for my aunt until she pays for my phone that her kids broke? Because right now I'm being called rude, and at this point I'm not sure what to do. Here's what happened. So my aunt and cousins are visiting from Boston. They are on school break right now, and I'm in school currently. Now, both of these kids are 6 years old, and they both are very rough. And since my mom and her sister seem to have a lot of catching up to do, they are out basically every single day. That leaves me and my brother and my other sister to babysit, and they are basically no help. On Saturday, I wanted to actually make them baked mac and cheese, and after putting the butter on the pan, I went to go get the flour, and I guess they thought it would be funny if they decided to put my phone on the stove, because they moved the pan and put my phone directly on the stove. I would say it was probably there for at least 45 seconds before I noticed it was actually on the stove itself, and eventually I took it off, but there was a burning smell, as well as the screen not really working. My dad sometimes will help me with them, but he was at the gym when all of this happened, and as a result, I ended up just making them something else. When my mom and aunt got back home, I immediately showed them my phone, and my mom was mad, but kind of became less mad when she found out it was my cousin's. My aunt basically said, "Oh well," and then tended to her kids. So as a result, I told her not to expect anything from me until my phone is fixed. At the time, we couldn't really get any money back for it breaking, and my aunt basically jumped on me and said, "Oh, I can't afford that." For reference, the deductible for the phone was about $175, and she even said that she can't afford it, even though she didn't even know the cost of it. Well, my mom and my sister are both mad at me for being rude and for making mom miss out on quality time with her sister, and now she just mumbles and grumbles every time I walk by her. So honestly, am I the jerk in this situation? Because right now I am incredibly frustrated, and I seriously now don't know what to do. I don't think you're the jerk at all. I think the way you reacted is completely reasonable. Your aunt literally needs to pay for that phone because it's her demon children that caused it to break in the first place. Like, it really does sound like the original poster is relatively responsible, so I am hard pressed to judge them as someone who would put their phone on like a heated stove. I know I've put my phone in weird places, but it would never be in a place where it would obviously get broken or damaged or like, I don't know, heated up on a stovetop. Like, I don't think anyone would willingly put it there, especially if they're doing something that requires concentration, like, I don't know, cooking a meal. And you know what? It is so rude for your mom and sister to be acting like, "Oh my god, stop being mean. You're distracting from my time with my sister." It's like, no, you're distracting me from having a phone that works, because the the fact of the matter is that her kids are the ones that broke that phone. You didn't do that on purpose, it was her kids. And I think the right thing to do would be to pay for it and find some kind of replacement for the original poster. So no, you are definitely not the jerk, and I think your aunt is absolutely on the hook. And anyone who says otherwise, in my opinion, is completely out of their mind. Today, I found a phone recording me while I was changing in my closet. And now, after I found out that it's my stepdad's phone, I feel completely freaked out. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 20-year-old female and I always change in my closet. And yesterday, I woke up, took my shower, and came back to my room to change into my clothes. Typically, I'll bring clothing into my bathroom on shower days, but yesterday was the exception. So anyways, I went back in and I reached for something on the ground and I saw a phone between my stuffed animals. I picked it up and I saw that it had been recording for the last 14 minutes. And mind you, I had only been in the closet for a minute at this point, so it was set up right after I went to take a shower. I freaked out and I brought it straight to my mom because lo and behold, this was my 40-year-old stepdad's phone. Now, I have no idea why he would do this. He's been in my life since I was really little. We're talking like 8 years old. So I am really confused right now. He's always tried to act like my father, asking me to call him dad, and in the last few years has been giving me hugs. My mom took my side and asked him to stay somewhere else while everything was being figured out. My mother and his mother are thinking it might have something to do with his alcoholism, as he does drink every night, but I have no idea. I reviewed the video yesterday and you can see him come into my closet, put it between my stuffed animals, and then move them a little so they hide the phone. And then he even moves one of my jackets so it doesn't block the view, just so he can get the perfect video of me. When my mom confronted him, she said he looked genuinely shocked and confused, as if he didn't remember doing that. With blackouts, you can forget events, I guess, but I just feel like he didn't black out. I mean, maybe, but it just seems way too easy for him to get out of it like that. He also said something about me needing to report him to the police. My mom took that as him being blacked out and doing something that he would have never done, but I took that as him being guilty and a master manipulator. I feel so violated right now. You know, in those games where you get to pick what you do, and then at the end you have the option to go back and see what could have happened? I wish I could do one of those right now because I'm so confused. If he truly blacked out, what was he going to do about his phone? Would he have remembered it, or what would have happened to it? I also feel bad because he's the father of my little brothers and my mother's husband, but at the same time, who would do this? She asked me if I thought I could ever forgive him if he got help, and at first, in shock, I said maybe, but after thinking about it and seeing the video and sleeping on it, today I just don't think that I could. My mom is having me see a counselor and a therapist to talk about what happened, so I guess that is kind of good. I am thinking of taking time off of work because this really is turning my world upside down, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. First of all, I want to say I am so sorry this happened to you. Like, this is so violating, it's not even funny. This is so incredibly bad, and I'm so sorry that you're going through this because you definitely do not deserve this. But on that note, I completely agree with the original poster. I don't think this guy blacked out at all. I think that's a very convenient excuse, and he's using that as some kind of way of having very convenient amnesia. Like, I'm sorry, you hid a phone in the closet literally so you could check out your stepdaughter. This guy has problems, and there is literally no good excuse for that. So if I was in your shoes, and I can only speak for myself, but I would not feel bad about reporting him if I did decide to go that route, which in my opinion is not a bad idea at all. And I would not care about his status as my stepdad or as a father or a husband at all. Like, all of that went out the window. Any kind of trust I would have for him or anything like that, it is now completely out the window because this guy very clearly had some ulterior motives. He was up to something very different and very sketchy, and you do not deserve this in the slightest. So seriously, I really hope this all works out for you. I hope you're able to get away from your stepdad completely, and I think, in my opinion, especially if I was in your shoes, that I would call the police and get this reported immediately, because this behavior is not normal, and I would not accept any excuse that anyone would try to give me. My boyfriend woke me up in the dead of night to try and make me go do laundry for him, and after dealing with this type of behavior for several months now, I seriously am at a crossroads, and at this point, I really don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so my boyfriend and I have been together for 5 months. We're both in college, but I don't have any roommates, so he basically lives in my dorm room. I would say like 90% of his stuff is in my room, including just about all of his clothes. Now, he does keep some in his room because it's on the other side of campus, so sometimes it's just more convenient to have an outfit or two over there. Now, I've asked him many times to help me with the laundry. I'm autistic and I have trouble doing chores and stuff with someone else in the room unless they're also doing a task, but I have the easiest time when someone's helping me out. So I'll ask him to match the socks or put shirts on hangers while I do the folding, but he never has. Sometimes he goes with me to the laundry room to put stuff in or switch it over or to bring it back, but even then, I usually have to specifically ask him to help, and he complains about it the entire time. Well, this morning I was woken up by him shaking me and telling me that he needs laundry done. I tried telling him to do it and go back to sleep, but he kept shaking me, and eventually I couldn't go back to sleep, which was just in time for him to roll over and do so himself. Now, I'm starting to get upset, and I feel like I shouldn't. I want to talk to him about it, especially because we're moving into an apartment together this summer, but I don't really feel like I have a right to be upset here because after all, it is my dorm room. I've spent a lot of my life growing up too fast and taking care of adults that should have been taking care of me. I don't know where to draw the line when it comes to boundaries with this kind of stuff, but we both work, so I don't want to be stuck doing all the chores in our home when we move in. But I don't know if addressing anything while we're still living in the dorm room is the right call, and I don't know if I'm just being paranoid. Now, for some context, I know it's too soon to move in together since I'm 19 years old and he's 21, but we are doing so that I can start working for our school full time. I'm required to have a local address outside of the dorms to do so, and I can't afford to live in our city on my own. Also, he has taken his laundry back to his room and has done his own loads there. I'm just frustrated with the lack of help that I'm getting because I still have to wash our sheets and our work clothing and whatever else he has here at the time. I'm honestly just so very frustrated, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Wow, your boyfriend is being super rude to you right now. You mean to tell me that he woke you up in the middle of the night, shook you awake and said, "Hey, I need my clothes washed," and instead of just doing it himself, like going and physically doing it, he decided to roll over and go to sleep, basically leaving you on the hook to do all this work? Like, that is incredibly rude, and in my opinion, that's like the straw that breaks the camel's back in this scenario, because it's pretty obvious that this is like a repeated situation that just keeps on happening. He's not helping you with the laundry or like with the dorm in general, and he's basically moved into your dorm entirely. So when you say, "Oh, I don't have the right to be upset because it's my dorm," well, in my opinion, it's his dorm as well. If he's living there full time and choosing to stay there over his own place, then in my opinion, he lives there as well. So he absolutely should be required to carry his weight. So I think it would be completely appropriate for you to have a conversation with him and to try and work this out well before you guys move in together. Because trust me, once you have a lease locked in and you both are on that lease and you can't just move out all of a sudden, that in my opinion is not the time to try and start addressing this. And instead, I really feel like if I was in your shoes, I would be addressing this like right now. It doesn't mean that you don't love him, and it doesn't mean that you don't care about him as a person. It just means that you care enough to set some kind of boundary and to say, "Hey, this is the stuff that I really need help with." So hopefully this all works out in some kind of way, because what your boyfriend did that night is completely unacceptable. And if anything, it just shows how lazy he's currently being, and that is something that you definitely do not deserve. My crazy psychopathic boss makes my life a living nightmare for well over a year, all because I caught them in the act of doing something super illegal at work. But now, after dealing with this for so long, I decided to blow the whistle and get them in trouble. And not only did I get him and his team fired from their job, but they also got reported to the government. And I've honestly never felt better about getting revenge on my boss in my life. Here's what happened. So I started a new job 3 years ago in the public service, and my department was in the hands of a psychopathic narcissist. Immediately, the narcissist started love bombing me. Now, me personally, I don't care about validation or the extra attention. I'm at work to work, and I love doing my job. Well, that then became my problem, because I had utility, and the narcissistic department head wanted to keep me close, all so I could make them look really good. Fast forward 12 months, and a role became available on this jerk's leadership team. I applied, and I was very successful. A few months after I commenced my new role on the leadership team, I became very aware of some really awful things that were happening. Some really fraudulent and corrupt stuff undertaken by my boss and 2 of my colleagues. Maybe they thought I was one of them and I would buy into their business practices, but instead, I called it out and I challenged what I had observed. Now, everyone who has been fortunate enough to meet a narcissist are very well aware of narcissistic rage, because what I then experienced was next level. I was sat down and verbatim told to shut up, and I was then instructed to never speak again. Obviously, I became an instant threat to all 3 of these corrupt jerks, which subsequently led to me being unbearably mobbed for the next 12 months, all in some kind of desperate attempt to get me to resign. Now, to be honest, I am pretty resilient, and I am lucky enough to be able to bury myself in my work, so I just kept on delivering what I needed to do. Once this jerk and his puppets realized they couldn't break me down, they started persecuting members of my team, and that's when they hit a raw nerve and I decided to take some action. I now regret not acting sooner, knowing that I could have prevented all of the bullying and the awful treatment I received over the past 12 months. Now, blowing the whistle was not easy by any means. I mean, this was next level stressful. My biggest fear was that I wouldn't be able to provide enough evidence. Also, I could substantiate the allegations I was making, resulting in these corrupt jerks staying in the business and being given free rein to psychologically destroy me on a daily basis. Well, I came forward and provided statements, and as a result, my boss and peers were stood down. The business then engaged an external forensic investigator who was given the authority to approach others to request that they submit statements to support my claims. I chose not to remain anonymous, which was a very difficult decision. However, I wanted these corrupt jerks to know that they could not intimidate me any longer. After a few months, I was informed that the serious misconduct allegations I made were sustained, and my jerk of a boss had been terminated and referred to the State Corruption Commission. And I seriously can't express the relief that I felt. Now, I look in the mirror and know they selected the wrong target. And in the end, all I can say is that revenge is oh so very sweet. Wow, this is a really cool story. Like, this guy not only saw exactly what was going on, but he put up with their garbage for over a year. Like, can you imagine having these kind of coworkers breathing down your neck, all of which know that you know they're doing sketchy stuff at the job you're working at? Like, I can only imagine the crazy lengths they went to just to try and like treat you like garbage, to try and like make you quit. Like, after the first 4 months, that would have like really driven me crazy. But I seriously think it's so cool and very brave of you to step forward and be like, no, enough is enough. I'm not dealing with this for another second. And in my opinion, I think this is a massive lesson that needs to be learned when it comes to like workplace relations. Like, if someone's bullying you at work or treating you so badly that it makes your life a living nightmare, or if you know your colleagues are doing something super sketchy and probably illegal at work, then this story at least shows that it is possible to step forward and say something to the authorities, or even just like report them to HR at the bare minimum. Like, this kind of behavior is not normal for a workplace, because at a normal workplace, you go in, you clock in, you do your job, and then you go home. But the fact that these guys were doing illegal stuff and they tried to get you out the door because they were doing illegal stuff and you knew about it, like, that is super sketchy and really scary. So truly good for the original poster for getting this done, as well as taking down their psychopath boss, who clearly had it out for them. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for calling my workmate unprofessional, all because she's been bringing her puppy to work, because that dog has been disrupting everybody in the office. And now, after I told her that she can't bring the dog back to work, she's calling me the jerk. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 27-year-old male and I'm working towards getting my PhD. So, in addition to some other roles I have at the university, I'm leading several projects with a core team of 7 members. Back in late January, one of the ladies on the team went on maternity leave, and then another left for maternity leave as well in early March. Because of this, our team has been stretched pretty thin. I understand this, so I've been setting less ambitious objectives for our team so that the remaining 5 of us are not overwhelmed. In late February, the newest member of the lab, who we will call Carol for the sake of the story, Carol is not her real name, took in a 5-week-old puppy by the name of Bean. Carol joined the lab back in December, as she needs to research for her master's degree. Before she joined, I had known her for almost 4 years, and here is where the problem really begins. Since getting Bean, Carol has been consistently coming late to meetings, missing her deadlines, and even leaving early. I've been having to take extra time after hours to ensure that she's in the loop. Carol says all of this is because of Bean and how much work he requires, since according to her, he is just a baby. Carol seems to have taken offense with the fact that the 2 ladies have taken maternity leave while she didn't get time off for her dog. It's a whole thing with her that since she's child-free and all, but I honestly just don't want to get into that. About 2 weeks ago, Carol asked me if she was okay for me to bring Bean to the office, since according to her, he gets upset and fussy when he's alone. Since the school doesn't have a policy forbidding this, and nobody else on the team objected, I allowed it. And trust me when I say this, the dog has been ridiculous here. It constantly barks and whines, has made a mess on the floor more than once, but the worst thing is that it starts to go pee whenever it sees me or other people, and it tries to run over to them while peeing being. It has a crate, but it always whines constantly whenever he's in it. And once he's out of the crate, he acts like he's in the Olympics or something, running around in all directions, trying to take the shoes off of my feet, etc. Carol has been doing less work as she spends so much time feeding and cleaning or trying to persuade Bean just to go to sleep. One of the other professors noticed this as well, and he told me to give her a warning about the situation before it got out of hand. Well, I did just that on Tuesday. I told her that keeping Bean in the office was untenable and that she would need to find some kind of alternative. Well, when I said that, she protested, but I insisted, and she seemed very upset with this. On Wednesday, Carol didn't come in since she didn't want to leave Bean alone. Today, she only showed up for a little bit and then she headed out. I didn't bother speaking with her, and just a few hours ago, after work, she called me and said that I was being a jerk for not advocating for her and Bean. I've decided not to escalate this since she is clearly under a lot of stress, but I did tell her that she was being very unprofessional and she needed to pull up her socks before her supervisor got involved. So honestly, am I the jerk in this situation? Because honestly, I really don't know what to do. No, I do not think you're the jerk at all. I think Carol's being very naive and very short-sighted if she thinks her dog is well-behaved or even like supposed to be in a lab where you do research. Like the dog is going to the bathroom all over the place. It's literally making a mess and causing all this disruption. Like, I don't know about you, but if I was working in that kind of environment, I would be very frustrated. And here's the thing, if the dog was well-behaved and actually did what it was told, then I'm sure this dog would be no problem. It would either sleep in its crate or it would just roam around and probably not bother anybody. But it's the fact that the dog is so unruly and literally just doesn't listen to Chloe or anybody and is overall making a massive mess of everything, that in my opinion is just not a good thing to have around the office. It is a workplace hazard and someone is gonna get hurt because of that dog. So no, you are not the jerk, and I think Chloe is being ridiculous for calling you the jerk. Because if anything, she's just being super selfish, and that is not your fault in the slightest. Am I the jerk for expecting someone to pay half the cost of a parking fine that they literally caused me to get in the first place? Because right now I'm very frustrated and I'm kind of at a loss on what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so my friend, who we will call Skylar, had made plans with me to spend the night at his apartment. I'd never been there before, and when I arrived, I noticed that some cars in his building parking lot had parking passes on their windshields. I wasn't sure if I was allowed to park there without one, so I asked Skylar if I needed to move my car to find street parking somewhere. Skylar told me that he's allowed to have a guest park in the spot assigned for his unit, and told me a specific spot to park my car. So I moved my car to the spot he told me was okay to park in, and then I went inside. The next morning, I went out to the parking lot and my car was nowhere to be seen. I went back into Skylar's apartment and I told him that my car had been stolen and we needed to call the police. Skylar's roommate then came in and said that my car was most likely towed because at 10 p.m. or so, they tow any car in the lot without a parking pass. And apparently, Skylar was supposed to talk to someone in his building management to get me a temporary pass, but obviously he didn't do that. I still had to call the police to get the number of the towing service that had my car, but thankfully I did find it and the impound lot wasn't very far away, so I was able to walk there and get my car. I was charged a fine of $186 for illegally parking in the lot and had to pay that much for them to release my car. I did ask them if I could get the fee waived if I had some kind of documentation from the owner of the unit stating that I had permission to park there, but they said it didn't work like that and I still had to pay. So after that, when I updated Skylar on the situation, I asked him to split the cost of the ticket with me and pay $93. Well, Skylar said absolutely not, because it was my car and I was on my own. I said that wasn't fair since it was his fault that I got towed, and that he should actually be paying the full amount, but I was only asking for half because I was trying to be a nice friend. Skylar just repeated that expecting him to pay for my car was ridiculous. Now, I didn't want to argue about it, and I don't think he even had the money to give me anyway, so I decided just to go home. I complained to one of my friends, and she said that Skylar was a jerk for not doing anything to help me get the car back, and it was fine to be mad at him for that. But she said that I was a little over the line expecting him to pay for my car expenses when he doesn't even have a car himself, and that's probably why he didn't know how the parking lot works. Now, I don't get this logic. I still feel like Skylar owes me $93, and I really think he's a jerk for not paying me. So honestly, am I in the wrong here? Because at this point, I'm very frustrated and I seriously don't know what to do. No, I don't think you're in the wrong at all, and I think Skylar is absolutely on the hook for not helping you out in this scenario. He literally told you to park in the parking lot and didn't know the details about how you could get towed. Like, how is that your fault. Yes, it is your car, but Skylar is the one who's like, yeah, you can park down there, it's all good. Like, you wouldn't have gotten towed if he just knew what he was talking about. So I don't blame you for being upset with him and being like, wait a second, this is kind of your fault as well. So no, you are definitely not the jerk. Skylar's an idiot for making you park there, and in my opinion, in the future, if you do decide to hang out with him, I would be slightly cautious about him helping you out with literally anything, because the way he acted is super inconsiderate, and in my opinion, I don't think that's fair in the slightest. I feel like my boss is screwing me over by essentially making me give up my weekends off, as well as making me work well over 40 hours every single week. And now I'm seriously so frustrated and I just don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So I'm a 24-year-old female, and I've been working a basic retail job for about 8 months now. This store that I work at is a larger department store like Walmart or Target, and our store in particular is a complete disaster. Like surprise visits from corporate at least once a week kind of disaster. All of our leading managers are being investigated for various things, and the general public has nothing but complaints about us. Anyways, I work in a lot of different departments since starting, so I'm trained as a cashier, customer service, general merchandise, and a few other things that I can't really mention without outing which company I work for. I go through a lot of employees really quickly. Since I was hired, I've seen more than half of my coworkers completely change at least 3 times. So working there for 8 months is considered a long time. When I first got hired, I made it very clear that I was not available to work weekends due to family obligations. But I work really hard, and I do most of the stuff myself. All the daily tasks are done by me, the cleaning and maintenance is done by me. All my coworkers have questions that they would usually have to ask the manager about, but I'm the one that they ask instead. I'm constantly just destroying myself figuratively for this job every day. I work 40+ hours a week and I get 1 day off, which I usually get asked to come in for work anyways. Last month, my manager came to me asking if I wanted to give up my weekends off so that I could work in another department. Basically, I'd be checking the store safe to count the money every weekend and make sure we have money set aside to refill the registers the next morning. They would train me on how to do this, and it would all come with a pay raise. A week later, that same manager told me that they were going to hold off a few weeks with the training until one of our coworkers was done with their vacation. Now, a month has passed, and I still have not been trained or gotten a pay increase, despite the fact that I'm now working weekends anyways, which I only agreed to for the pay increase and the new position. Not only that, but I haven't had a day off in 2 weeks because of this scheduling. Anyways, while working at the customer service desk yesterday, my manager asked me if I wanted to also work another department in the store. That would mean that I've agreed to work in 7 different departments and only currently working in 5. I agreed, but asked about the other previously mentioned position, and she said that she would figure out what was going on. Well, that same day, I found out that one of my coworkers, who is a seasonal part-time employee, was randomly scheduled for training working the position I was promised. Now, I'm not upset at her because she had no idea about it, and they didn't even ask or warn her about it, but I seriously feel very betrayed since I'm working extra for less days off and with no pay increase. I just don't know if I'm justified in being pissed off or not because of my time working here being less than a year. I'm honestly at such a loss, and I seriously don't know what to do. Yeah, what you're describing is very unfair, and this is not okay. Your manager promised you that you would get a pay increase and a new job in this store, which by the way, you're doing way too much, and there's no way I would ever stick with this job. But like, they promised a pay increase and a new position, and not only have they not given any of that to you in exchange for your weekends, but now you no longer have a day off, and they're giving that position you were promised to somebody else. Like, what's the deal with that? That is not okay. That's also not your responsibility to try and figure out. So I know if I was in your shoes, I would tell them, hey, since you're not giving me a pay increase or this new position, I am no longer available on the weekends. Like, I would put my foot down immediately and say, I'm sorry, but this is not working for me. Because you should not be forced to do all this work for such little pay. You absolutely should be compensated for your time, especially if you've seen all these other coworkers turn over so quickly. Like, 8 months is not that long for working somewhere, and for your entire team to turn over 3 times, like, that is an insane turnover rate, and based on the way the managers are acting, I kind of see why. Like, these people don't know what they're doing. It seems like one person is organizing one thing, and then everything else just gets switched around behind the scenes. So truly, it really seems like they're overbooking and overscheduling you, and they're taking advantage of your willingness to work and help them out. And in my opinion, I think in the future, it would be very important to say, you know what, I would be happy to take on these additional duties, but I need to see a pay increase to match what I'm doing on a weekly basis. Because according to what you're describing right now, it seems like you're doing way too much. And in my opinion, that is absolutely unfair. Am I the jerk for being disrespectful to my parents after I rejected them when they tried to ground me despite the fact that I'm a grown adult? Because right now, I'm in the process of moving out. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so I live at home while going to university. I'm in my final year and I have a job lined up after I graduate. My parents have been charging me rent since I was 16 years old. I have a small company that makes about $60,000 a year, and I started this back in high school. It is one of the reasons I graduated early from high school and why I got attention from recruiters. My parents said that since I was earning adult money, I could take in adult responsibilities. And you know what? I thought that was fair. So I paid for all my own stuff starting at the age of 16. Not university, I got a scholarship for that. And the rent they charged me was really minor. It was maybe $300 a month. But after that, I basically considered my room to be completely mine. I kept it tidy because I like it that way. But they had no say when I cleaned it up. I would do my own laundry, but not at a time that would disturb other members of the family. And I also bought food for myself and ate when I wanted. They tried to say I was separating myself from the family, but I saw it more as having my own schedule. This year for spring break, I went down to Mexico with my friends. My parents are upset because they were hosting a big Easter family get-together. When I got back, they said I was behaving badly by not being around for a family gathering. I said it was my last spring break in university and that I was not responsible for their schedule. They said I was grounded, and I laughed and said, okay, good luck with that. I went to my room and I locked the door. They tried banging on it for my attention, but I was just completely done. My grandfather came over to talk to me later, and for a bit of context, he is the only one who helped me get my company started, and he has always been there for me. He said that I was rude to my parents when they were trying to be there for me, and I asked him how much rent he charged my mom when she lived at home. He said it was ridiculous to think that he would charge his kids rent, and I told him that I've been paying rent for 4 years. Well, after I said that, he went into the house and I heard fighting. When he came out, he said that I need to treat my parents with more respect, but that since they are my landlords, they do not have a say over how I spend my time. I'm avoiding my parents for now, and I'm renting an Airbnb right now until I graduate. I took everything that was important to me and I left $600 for the last 2 months I planned on being there. At the moment, they keep calling me, but I am currently getting ready to move for my new job. And you know what? I simply don't have the energy to deal with them right now. So seriously, was I the jerk or even just disrespectful to my parents? Because at this point, I am so completely done with them and I seriously don't know what to do. No, you are definitely not the jerk. For reference, the original poster has to be in their 20s and they clearly have their life figured out in a major way. They have their own business, they're going to college, and they literally are paying for rent in their parents' house. So for these parents to really go to the original poster and actually try to ground a grown adult, that in my opinion is hilarious and there's just no good excuse for that. Like technically they have absolutely no say over what you can and can't do, and they literally do not control your time any longer. You are an adult and you can make your own decisions. So if you want to go to Mexico for spring break, then absolutely go to Mexico. And honestly, I think it's a good idea that you're finally moving out and that you gave them the $600 necessary for the last 2 months you planned on staying there. That way you can guarantee that you keep them completely out of your hair and they have no excuse to try and fight you on anything. Because from the sounds of it, it really seems like your parents are very controlling. I mean, why else would they start charging you $300 a month at the age of 16? It almost seems like they're trying to punish you for being a high achiever, all because you graduated early and have your own business. Like, that's not a bad thing, and I can't imagine them being like, oh, you want to have adult responsibilities? Congratulations, it's time to pay rent. Like, no, why would you do that to your own kid? That's just like really weird to me. So no, I don't think you're the jerk at all. I think your parents were completely out of line trying to boss you around like that, and honestly, with all things considered, I don't blame you for moving out in the slightest. My entitled mother is demanding that I pay off all of her debt after she got into a multi-level marketing scheme last year. She even goes as far as calling me selfish and evil for not being willing to pay her the thousands of dollars that she's in debt with this company. And now she's taken things a step further, as she is now saying that if I don't pay off her debt, she's going to exile me from the entire family. And right now, I feel so very hurt, and I simply do not know what to do. Here's what happened. So my mother got herself into a multi-level marketing scheme last year, despite my brother and I warning her against it. She quit her job because the multi-level marketing scheme people told her that this was her chance to become an entrepreneur and independent. My dad is supporting her financially financially now, as well as my 4 younger siblings. She pretty much gave up on the oils after selling them to everybody that she knows. She still has a lot more left to sell, but now she wants to do something else because she doesn't feel like she's her own boss under this company. She overestimated how many people want to buy her product, and now she is thousands of dollars in debt. She won't get a job, and my dad can't afford to pay it off without selling the house and his car. My brother has 3 kids in private school, so he doesn't have much money to spare, and I'm on maternity leave, and the amount she needs will wipe out my savings, and I'd have to use my husband's money as well to cover this debt, which I just don't think is fair, especially since she doesn't want to get a job after this debt is cleared, because she is some entrepreneur at heart, and according to her, working for someone else's company is soul-crushing. She wants to open a food truck even though they aren't popular in the town that she lives in, and always go out of business sooner or later. My mom is a bad cook, but she's competing with professional chefs, and I'm sure she'll give up as soon as it gets hard. My dad says he plans to sell the house and his car and move his tenants out of the apartment that he owns. My mom called me crying because she loves her neighborhood and has lived here for 35 years. She says that I'm selfish and evil for not paying her debt because she'll pay me back when she expands her food truck business. She doesn't understand why I don't just use my husband's money, since according to her, he won't notice that it's gone. My mom has threatened to not allow me to see my younger siblings, who I am very close with too, by the way, and she's basically said she's gonna have me exiled by our entire family. So this leads to my question: would I be the jerk if I refused to clear this debt even though I could, all because my mom is threatening me? Because at this point, I am very frustrated, and right about now, I seriously don't know what to do. No, you are not the jerk. There is so many sketchy things going on here, it is not even funny. First of all, I think you need to understand that no, this is not your problem. Like, you and your brother basically said, hey, this is a scheme, you really should not get into this. Like, you guys tried to get through to her. You tried to explain to her exactly why this is a bad idea, but she still decided, ooh, I want to be an entrepreneur and I want to be independent. But with these multi-level marketing schemes, that is just literally never possible, because these schemes only deplete your bank account, and it leaves you with all this crappy product in your garage that just sits there and rots and collects dust. So in that regard, it's her own fault for being thousands of dollars in debt. Not to mention the fact that she's unwilling to get a job just to get rid of this debt. Like, seriously, what is she thinking? That is so insane to me. Instead of badgering your children and being like, oh, I'm gonna exile you from the family, or even being like, yeah, you're never gonna see your younger siblings again, why not just get a job and figure this out as you go along? Like, even your dad is like, yeah, I gotta sell everything because she won't get a job and figure this out. Like, all of this is literally her own fault, and yet she still comes to you and calls you selfish and evil for not paying off her debt. But it's like, I'm sorry, I didn't put you in this mess. I tried to warn you about this mess and you still ignored me. So in my opinion, the fact that she's giving you an ultimatum of her basically saying, oh, pay for my debt or you're out of the family, like, that seriously is more than enough for me to walk away and be like, no, I am not getting involved in this. Because that is not only an awful thing to say to a family member of all people, but also it shows completely how awful your mom actually is. Because this entire scenario is literally her own fault. And in my opinion, I don't think you should have to sacrifice thousands of dollars just to try and save her from her own self-inflicted debt. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for agreeing to split the bill on a double date, which is starting to lead to my best friend's relationship falling apart? Because right now she is blaming me for things going south, and at this point I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So I'm a 22-year-old female and I'm really unsure of what to do right now. My best friend and roommate, who we will call Amy, that's not her real name, had been seeing a guy for about 2 months. She really likes him and it seemed like it was going super well. Last night, she asked if I'd go along with a blind double date, meaning that she would go with this guy that she's dating and I would go with one of his friends who is also single and looking for a relationship. Now, I wasn't keen at first, but she insisted, so I agreed. We got to the restaurant, which is just a nice place in our area, and things seemed to be going fine. The friend she was setting me up with was really cool, but I'm not looking right now and I didn't really feel any kind of spark. We get to the end of the dinner and the bill comes around. Amy chimes in and says, don't worry, our men have got this. To which I say back, oh no, I don't mind. We had had 2 cocktails each, and it wasn't a crazy expensive place, but also not very cheap. Now, much to my surprise, a bit of a back and forth started to happen. Amy kept insisting it was always the gentleman who pay. So I said something like, well, you can do you, but I'm happy to split the bill. bill. The guys were saying that they would cover, but both seemed very uncomfortable. They paid and then we left, and Amy and her boyfriend went back to his place, and I said goodnight to his friend and went home alone. Later on, Amy texted me saying her man is now contemplating the relationship because he doesn't want someone who always insists that the men pay. She told me that I ruined it by offering to split, and I should have just sided with her and not made things worse. She's now saying he needs time and might not want to continue the relationship with her at all. So honestly, am I the jerk for possibly breaking them up? Because right now, I seriously don't know what to do. Okay, first of all, I don't think you're the jerk at all because I don't think you did anything wrong. I've been on enough double dates to know that it's not that out of the ordinary to split the bill amongst everybody there. So the fact that your friend Amy decided to make a big deal out of this and really try to like hammer home the point that the guys are gonna pay for it, it's gonna be them, like that's just super weird, and it really is kind of cringy behavior in my opinion, and it really seemed like it was a hill that she was willing to die on. And also, why is Amy coming at you as if you did something? Last I checked with the conversation, you didn't really do anything wrong. Like all you said was, hey, I'm gonna pay for my stuff. And now she's trying to make it sound like you broke up her relationship. Like you didn't do anything wrong. And why should you have to side with her automatically? Like her thought process of like, oh yeah, the men will pay, in my opinion, isn't like this golden rule that everybody abides by, but rather it's just her own opinion, or she just didn't want to pay, which I think might be what's going on here. So no, I don't think you're the jerk. I really don't think you did anything wrong. And if your friend's relationship is falling apart because of this, of all things, then in my opinion, it probably was not gonna last that long in the first place. Am I the jerk for refusing to make pizzas for everyone at my sister's graduation party, all because they told me literally at the last minute that they wanted me to do that? Because right now, I'm being called lazy by my family, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 20-year-old male and I went to a culinary school and have been working in professional kitchens since I was 18 years old. Even though I'm an adult, since I'm the youngest child in my family and one of the youngest relatives in general, a lot of the times it's difficult for me to get my relatives to take me seriously or keep me in the loop about anything. I attended my sister's graduation earlier today, and right after, I carpooled home with my mom. It isn't until while we were in the car driving to my mom's house for the graduation party that I was told that I was supposed to make pizza for everyone at the party. Now, I've made pizza for my family before, not because anybody asked me to do it, but instead it was purely because I wanted to. The thing that is frustrating me more than anything is that multiple people knew about this ahead of time, but they decided to tell the person who's actually responsible for making them at the very last minute. On top of that, my family is massive. There is most likely going to end up being about 14 or 15 people at this party. Now, if you're not that into cooking, you might not understand how much of a grueling process making pizza from scratch truly is. Between making the dough, the sauce, and actually cooking them, it is a process I need to be ready for literally multiple days ahead of time, just so I can have everything ready and set. Well, I told them that I was sick of being kept out of the loop and not being treated like an adult by everyone in my family, and yet everyone still relies on me constantly cooking for everyone every single time there's a family event. I told them that I will not be making pizza today, and if anyone wants anything from me, I won't do it unless I'm completely kept in the loop of what's going on, and I want to be told about things multiple days ahead of time. Now, to be honest, I feel bad for my sister because she was very excited to try my homemade pizza, but I had to explain to her why it wasn't going to happen, and I told her I can make her one later in the week as a graduation present. My parents think that I'm just being petty and just not making them because I'm being lazy. So I need to know, am I the jerk for not making the stupid pizzas? Because I seriously do not think that I did anything wrong. No, you are definitely not the jerk. Your family are the jerks here. Like seriously, what's going on? They waited until you were in the car on the way to the graduation party to be like, oh, by the way, you're gonna be stuck in the kitchen making food for all of us. Like I'm right there with the original poster. If I'm gonna be doing something that intensive, I really wanna know about it ahead of time. I don't wanna find out on the fly suddenly while I'm there at the party, and definitely not while I'm on the way to the party itself. Like I would wanna mentally and physically prepare to get this done. And here's my assumption, to be completely honest. I really think the original poster would have done this for their family if they were at least told about it sooner than the last minute. Like that is seriously so obnoxious and it is so unfair. So no, you are definitely not the jerk, because if I was in your shoes, I really think I would do the same thing. And the fact that they want to call you lazy and try to shift blame over to you, in my opinion, completely shows how out of touch they truly are. My wife walked out on me and my daughter 2 years ago, and now out of nowhere has suddenly returned and wants to be a family again. But after raising my daughter by myself for 2 years, as well as taking on the responsibility responsibility of being a single father, I told her plainly that I'm considering divorce because right now I feel very hurt and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so 2 years ago, my wife pulled the classic, I'm gonna go buy some smokes, and then just disappeared. She suffered from depression and I did my best to take the load off of her and help her get the help that she needed. She would keep saying how she was sick of everything, even our daughter, and again, I would give her space and try to accommodate her every request. Then she just up and disappeared. She took some of her stuff and she was just gone. I had gone to pick up our daughter at school after work, and after we came home, she was gone. The police was involved, but after 3 days, she called her mother saying she was fine, but wished for us to not look for her or to contact her. And trust me, when this happened, it was really hard. Working, raising our daughter as a single father, trying to explain to her why mom was gone, and not knowing what to say when she asked if mommy would ever be back. At the same time, I appreciated the strong bond I built with my daughter, and that really helped a lot. I never looked into filing for divorce, but around last summer, I met a woman that we will call Jane. Jane is not her real name. And we started on an on and off again relationship. She knows all about my situation, and although we are currently on break, she is still a big help and has an established rapport with my daughter as an aunt figure. Now, I was thinking about getting the ball rolling on divorce, that is, until about 2 weeks ago when my wife returned. She was completely apologetic, but she also seemed to have become a new person entirely. She was upbeat, she was pro-positive, and almost had a glow about herself. She popped back in by basically saying, "Hey guys, what did I miss?" And after our initial shock, my daughter and I became indifferent. In the last days, my daughter has warmed up to her, but I didn't. She tried to be close to me after about 2 nights, but I told her I was not comfortable about it, and I asked her to move into the guest room, which she did, saying that she completely understands. I then asked her where she's been these last few years, and she pretty much said that she toured the world and that she had found herself. I told her pretty bluntly that I was looking for divorce and that there's already someone else. She said she completely understands if I hate her now, which I don't, but maybe I can give her a chance to make it up to us. So right now I am torn. I still have feelings for her and I'm glad my daughter got her mother back, but how can I trust her to not just walk out on us? What am I supposed to do with Jane? Am I just gonna say thanks for everything but my wife is back, see you later? I'm honestly at such a loss, and at this point I don't know what to do. Okay, in my opinion, first and foremost, I think it is absolutely toxic the way your wife is acting. You mean to tell me she took a 2-year vacation away from you and your daughter just so she could find herself and then pop back into the family? Like, there's no good excuse for that. Like, she literally abandoned the family and then tries to come back and act like nothing's wrong. Like, what is happening right now? This is so bizarre to me. In my opinion, if she really thinks she can walk into your life again and try to pretend like nothing's wrong and nothing changed and everything's fine, then she's completely insane. Not to mention the fact that she's like, oh, I found myself. I spent these last few years to tour the world. Like, what are you talking about? You walked out on your husband and your daughter, literally leaving your husband to raise their kid by themselves. Like, that is so incredibly toxic and so disgusting to do to someone. So with all things considered, I don't blame you for being upset, because from the sounds of it, she is definitely a flight risk. And in my opinion, there's absolutely nothing saying that she won't try to do this once again. Am I the jerk for refusing to pay for half of my ex-girlfriend's flight that she can't use, all because we broke up? Because right now she's calling me a jerk, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so my girlfriend and I broke up about 2 weeks ago. It was more her call than mine, but we both knew that things weren't going well for a while. So I was sad, but honestly not surprised. We ended things amicably and said we'd still be friends. Anyways, we did the exchange of things in each other's apartments a couple of days after the breakup, and then we didn't really talk again until about 2 days ago when she texted me. We had been planning to go on a trip to the Canary Islands this year, and the plane tickets were about $800 a piece, and the Airbnb was about $1,600. So we decided I'd just pay for the Airbnb and she would pay for the flights. Now, the flights were non-refundable, and we were already past the date that I'd get any kind of meaningful refund from the Airbnb. So I decided I'd just get a friend to split the Airbnb and go anyways. I had been planning on telling my ex that I'd pay her for my ticket so that she didn't lose the money, but she texted me about it first. On Friday, she offered to pay me for the Airbnb minus the cost of my plane ticket because she was still interested in going with a friend. So I told her that I was actually planning on going with a friend too, but I was going to pay her for my ticket and still go. She said okay, but I actually needed to pay her for my ticket and half of the cost of hers because she can't use it now. Basically, she says that she agreed agreed to buy 2 plane tickets under the understanding that we would both go on the trip, and I agreed to pay for the Airbnb under the same understanding, but since that's not happening, we should both evenly share the cost. Since I'm still using the room and my ticket, the only lost cost is our $800 ticket, and we should each bear $400 of that. Well, I told her that I didn't think that's fair at all. First of all, it was her idea to break up, so the reason we aren't going is all on her, and secondly, there's no reason why she can't use her ticket. She should just get an Airbnb and still go with her friend. I even said I'd sit in her friend's seat and let her friend sit in my seat so they can sit together. Whether or not she uses her ticket is on her, and she bears any cost of that. Well, she said she didn't want to go at the same time as me, and also the good Airbnbs are taken for that time. Anyways, we went back and forth, and she even threatened to cancel the tickets, even though she can't get any of the money back. So I said to her, you know what, go ahead and cancel them. Get whatever refund you can, I'll just buy my own ticket and not pay you back anything. She then said to me, I'm not gonna talk to you if you're gonna be a jerk. Let's talk about this later when you could be mature. And that's honestly where it is right now. My friends are divided, and most say I should at least pay her for my ticket, which I am willing to do if she doesn't cancel it. But some say I should pay for her half as well. But I'm sticking firm that I won't be paying for her half of the ticket. So honestly, am I the jerk here? What should I do? Okay, honestly, I don't understand any reasoning why you would pay for her half of the ticket. Like, it literally just doesn't make any sense. It seems like she's trying to get out of paying for her part of it, and honestly, that is not your problem. Like, she's being unreasonable, and it's just really annoying. So no, I don't think you're the jerk for refusing to pay what she's asking for, because it literally just doesn't make any sense. And if she's honestly unhappy with this scenario, then I think she needs to be a little bit more reasonable. Am I the jerk for not wanting my family to come to my graduation, all because they skipped out on my brother's graduation? Because right now, I feel it would be very unfair for them to show up, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so my brother graduated last year. His graduation date got moved 3 days earlier than what it was originally supposed to be, and it resulted in none of our family members on my dad or my mom's side attending the ceremony, besides me and our dad. Our brothers went to their friend's wedding, our aunts and uncles went to work, and our cousins just didn't come or couldn't come. But he was really hurt by this. Everyone who didn't come along, by the way, tried to act like this wasn't necessarily a big deal to him and told him that they were sorry that they had to miss it, but kinda dismissed it as having other plans and other stuff going on. Well, he just kind of accepted it to their face. But since I'm graduating, now he's starting to get upset again. I graduate in 5 weeks, and on Thursday, me, my brother, and my dad were all in the living room, and my dad was talking about how the whole family couldn't wait to see me walk across that stage, and they just kept blabbering on and on. My brother didn't really say anything, but instead he just kept looking at his phone, but I could see his facial expression had changed. I felt bad for him again, and told my dad that I would rather the family just come to my graduation dinner afterwards instead, and just for him and my brother to come along. Now, my dad asked me why, and told me that the family was looking forward to seeing me graduate, but I told him that I understand that, but I just didn't want them to be there. He kept pressuring me on a better reason, but I didn't really want to say it in front of my brother because I didn't want to make him upset, so I just told him that I just didn't want them there. Later that night, I tried to talk to my dad alone, and I tried to explain that since the family didn't come to my brother's graduation, that I don't want them at my graduation because then I would feel guilty, and I don't want to feel guilty when I graduate. Now, I thought he would finally understand, but he just didn't. He told me that they didn't choose to move the graduation date, and I explained to him that I understand, but it still doesn't mean that I have to want them there. He didn't like this and basically told my brother about it too, and my dad kept trying to convince me to change my mind, but I don't think I should have to. I'm even thinking about sending a text in the group chat to let everyone know sometime tomorrow. And with that, I really need to know, would I be the jerk for doing this? Because right now, I'm seriously unsure of what to do. Honestly, first and foremost, I think it's really kind that you're standing up for your brother, and you're basically saying, look, the fact that he got neglected is not okay, and if these people want to neglect my brother and deny him the chance to celebrate his graduation, all with phony excuses by the way, then they don't deserve to come to your graduation. And I think that notion is very noble and it's very kind of you. So I don't think you would be the jerk for saying, you know what, just come to the after party. I don't want them at the graduation, and I would rather they just not show up at all. Like, that really is a sweet gesture, and I think your brother would probably like that if you explained it to him in detail. So while I think the idea is a good idea to a certain extent, I think it would still be a good idea to talk with your brother and try to get a gauge for how he feels about the situation, and especially to figure out if he would even want you to do that in the first place, because there is a chance he won't really care or want want you to do that, and he might have just moved on already at this point in his life. But regardless, I think this is a very kind gesture, and I wouldn't blame you in the slightest if you did decide to do that. My entitled husband went behind my back and spent over $160,000 investing our money in baseball cards. And now that the truth has come out, I'm in the process of trying to get my money back that he spent on these cards. And as a result, he is absolutely losing his mind on me, saying that I have no right to try and get my money back, and that if I keep trying to do this, he's going to divorce me, sell our house, and dissolve our business. And at this point, based on the way he's acting, I seriously am at a crossroads and I now don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So my husband spent $160,000 investing in baseball cards without telling me. During the same time, he would get mad at me for spending money on meal plans or salon services, and I would get yelled at for my disrespectful spending and my financial goals not aligning with his, or at least so he'd say. And he did most of this spending on his personal credit card that he paid for with our joint bank account. For a long time, I didn't have access to our online banking, so I didn't see the amounts he was paying in his credit card. But whenever I would question a $2 payment or a $4,000 payment, he would always have some kind of excuse, and usually say it was for the family or from the grocery store. And he would also refuse to show me any of his statements. Well, one day, driving to lunch, he mentioned how my friends owed him for the concert tickets that I had used his card to buy, and so I agreed to get the money from them. In mentioning the card though, I remember just seeing another $4,000 payment come out of our joint bank account. Now this was after about 2 months ago when he promised that he had a $2,000 balance and was going to pay it off and stop using it. So I said to him, I thought it was going to be paid off in a couple of months. And honestly, that's all that it took. He launched into me about how I ruin everything, how we just can't enjoy the day, and this is why my relationships never work out. He just went on and on, eventually dropping me back off at our house and then just left. It was this outburst that made me realize there was more going on. After lots of back and forth and digging, and finally getting him to give me access to his credit card statements, I added up nearly $160,000 in 3 years that he had spent. I already realized the financial sketchiness that has taken place on many levels, and there is so much that I'm just not including. But during all of this time, my husband met with a divorce lawyer and then begged me for another chance. And that was about a year ago. We are still together, but as you can imagine, the financial issues are one of the many issues that we have. At the time, I realized what he had spent and that I was so ill-prepared for a divorce that I started transferring money from our joint account to my personal every single month. My goal over time is to take back my half, which would be about $80,000, and invest it how I want to invest it. Now, he was, of course, really mad, but I basically said, oh well, he should have considered me when he spent it, and I was only correcting his wrong. Recently, he made sure the money wasn't in the account when my transfer was scheduled. He did this 2 months in a row and said that I could no longer do this. I waited for money to be there and then I did the transfer anyways. And when I did that, he went nuts. He was telling me that I'm a rat, that he's gonna sell the house and dissolve our business. He says that it's wrong for me to try and get even and that I should just let it go. Now, the money is just sitting in my account as I have not spent any of it. So honestly, am I the jerk for trying to take my money back over time? Because right now, I seriously don't know what to do. Wow, this guy is insane if he thinks this is okay in some kind of way. For reference, according to the original poster, there are literally baseball cards everywhere. They're organized in sleeves and boxes, and they are also PSA graded, which basically means they're in really good condition in like a plastic container, more or less. And like, I can understand that as like a side hobby, but to literally spend over $100,000 on that hobby, in my opinion, is insane. That's like an insane level of money that he's spending on baseball cards of all things. And worst of all, he's paying it off with your joint bank account. Like seriously, how is that fair at all? Half of that money is 100% yours. So for him to freak out when you're trying to like return the favor and be like, no, I'm getting my money back, that in my opinion is so hypocritical that it really is a massive red flag. So hopefully this can work out for you in some kind of way, because what you're describing sounds really sketchy. And in my opinion, your husband is 100% in the wrong. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for refusing to allow my mom and her family to live in my cabin that I'm gonna receive when I'm 18? Because right now she's really upset with me, and at this point I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So my dad bought a cabin before he married my mom, and it became a family place for us when he married my mom and they had me. Now, as a point of note, note, when he wrote his will, he left the cabin to me and not my mom. But my mom helps look after it in the meantime, but full ownership goes to me when I turn 18. Well, my dad passed away when I was 7 years old, and my mom remarried when I was 10. And my mom has 2 kids with her current husband. When my mom got engaged and found out that she was pregnant, she asked me if I would be okay with the cabin remaining for the family and including her husband and the new baby. She wanted to keep it as the family vacation spot, but said if I would turn around once I owned it completely and say that I didn't want her husband and new kids to be there, then she wasn't going to ruin any memories for them or cause them some heartache by bringing them, knowing they would no longer be able to go in a few years. I told her I wouldn't want to use it and I wouldn't let it be used by her new family, but she told me they were our family and not hers. She saw I still didn't want to let it be for them as well, so she never took them there at all. Before Christmas, my mom let her sister-in-law and family stay in the cabin because they lost their house. Ever since then, my half-sister has been asking me questions about it and wondering why she never goes there. Well, my mom told her that it was mine, and she looked after it for me until I was an adult, and she wanted the family to be safe. So then my half-sister is asking when we're all gonna go there, and why don't we ever try to stay there, and how she wants to see it really badly. My mom asked me if I had changed my mind yet, and I said no. So my mom was trying to make my half-sister less upset about it, but she would ask questions once a week about the cabin and say that she wanted to visit. Well, this really upset my mom's husband, who said it was ridiculous that a cabin was owned by the family and that they just couldn't use it. Now, he said this around me once, and I told him it's not owned by the family, it's owned by me. My mom is now blaming me, saying it put everyone in a bad position because her in-laws stayed there, but she can't bring the kids. I told her that it wasn't my fault, that she was the one who offered the cabin all by herself and I had no say in it. She told me it was the right thing to do, and the right thing to do now would be to accept that my family has changed and to let them all enjoy the cabin. I told her I can't stop her for the next 2 years, but it's not going to be used once I take full control. My mom and her husband both told me that wasn't the correct way to behave. They said I made my half-sister upset by letting her aunt, uncle, and cousin stay there. But yet again, I told my mom that she let them stay, not me, and she needs to own it instead of blaming me. They were mad that it implied that I would have refused to let them stay and that I don't see how my actions are the root problem in everything. So honestly, am I the jerk in this situation? Because right now, I really don't know what to do. No, in my opinion, I don't think that you're the jerk. Here's the thing, that cabin is going to you when you turn 18. And since they're 16 years old, they have 2 years left for their mom to basically do whatever they want with it. And from the sounds of it, it really seems like your mom and your mom's husband are just trying to guilt trip you into giving into what they want. I mean, they're literally using your half-sibling as like some kind of like guilt tripping maneuver just so they can be like, wow, you're upsetting her for not allowing anybody to be there. How could you do that? But it's like, what are you talking about? She's the one that offered her in-laws a place to stay at that cabin. The original poster didn't do that. So for her to turn around and be like, wow, you did all of this. How could you do that? Like seriously, that is so manipulative and it's just so wrong. So in my opinion, this is your cabin in 2 years. And your mom is overstepping by trying to make it sound like this is some dire situation. Because if she really wanted to bring her kids over to that cabin before he turns 18, which by the way, again is in 2 years, then she easily could do that. She could take everybody over there and have at least 2 vacations and do whatever you want. So for her to be like, oh yeah, you're never letting us over there, I can't believe it, that's just super toxic, and in my opinion, I would just completely ignore that. Am I the jerk for calling my brother a hypocrite, all because he's refusing to come to my wedding since I made it child-free? Because right now he is very upset, and at this point, I don't know what to do. So I am due to get married to my partner this summer. I'm a 27-year-old female, and my partner is 28 years old. This whole situation is about my brother, who we will call Josh. Josh is not his real name. He is refusing to come to my wedding, and I think he's being unreasonable and very childish. For a bit of context, our wedding is going to be child-free, with no kids under the age of 13. The youngest guest will be around the age of 12 to 13 years old at the time of the wedding. My partner and I don't hate children, and we had multiple reasons for having a wedding this way. Me personally, I think that weddings are mostly boring. They're unenjoyable experiences from the point of view of small children, so it's hardly surprising that they will act up. Josh has a set of twins that are 5 years old, and he has made many comments that we are selfish for having a child-free wedding, and that if we weren't inviting his kids, he is not going. Now, I can understand his perspective, but I think he's not making any effort to understand ours. When Josh got married 7 years ago, he and his wife also had a child-free wedding. Last weekend, we attended a family party, and some family members brought up the topic of my upcoming wedding. Josh scoffed the whole time and made a comment that he wouldn't know about it because he's excluded from it. His comments caused short, awkward silences, but honestly, nobody responded to them. Later, when I was talking to Josh alone, I told him he is still invited to the wedding, and he and his wife can go or not. Those are his options, and him making snide comments aren't going to change the plans. He said that I'm alienating his children, and that they will be sad about this when they're older, and that they would love to be flower girls. But I just straight up called him a hypocrite, and told him to grow up and that this was the end of the conversation. Our parents are now getting involved, and my dad told me that he and my stepmom will not be at the wedding if Josh isn't. Now, I'm not close with him for unrelated reasons, and our relationship is rocky at best, so I told him that is completely up to him. My mom is asking me to just make an exception for Josh's kids, and she said that I'm acting like a narcissist, and that we all have to make compromises sometimes. So seriously, am I the jerk in this situation? Because at this point, I really don't know what to do. Honestly, it is completely hypocritical for him to have a child-free wedding, and then complain about you doing the same thing. Like seriously, this is so weird. He's sitting there acting like, wow, you're excluding me from coming to your wedding. But it's like, no, you're not. You could just get a babysitter for your kids and then you can show up for a few hours. Like, this really is not that complicated. And it's not like you're only excluding his twins. You are literally excluding anybody who is a kid. And personally, from my perspective, that makes complete sense. Like, I don't see anything wrong with saying, yeah, I don't want any kids at my wedding, and I just want this to be people that are old enough to appreciate it. Because here's the thing, kids make noise and they can be distracting. Even the best behaved kids are gonna do something that might take away from the ceremony. And in my opinion, I think there's nothing wrong with saying, yes, I want to have a child-free wedding. So if your brother wants to act like a weirdo, as well as your extended family being like, wow, if Josh can't go, then we're not gonna go, then honestly, that is completely on them. And in my opinion, I don't think you've done anything wrong. Am I the jerk for getting mad at a girl who is spreading a rumor around my school that I'm faking having Tourette's? Because after I confronted her and told her that I need her to stop talking about me like that, I was the one that ended up getting in trouble. And now I'm seriously frustrated and I now don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, for a bit of background, I'm a 16-year-old male and I suffer from Tourette syndrome, which I was diagnosed with when I was around 11 years old. I say suffer because in my experience, it has been horrible. It affects daily aspects of my life, and it isn't something that I joke about. The other day, while I was in the library, this girl who's an 18-year-old senior came up to me and we started chatting. I'll call her Amy for the sake of the story, and Amy tells me that she heard through the grapevine that I was going around telling people that I have Tourette's when I don't. Now, for some background on Amy, Amy is friends with this girl that I used to be relatively close with. We'll call her Lily. Lily's not her real name. And Lily knows for a fact that I do have Tourette's. She used to come to my house often and only found out because she heard my mom asking me if my new meds were helping with all of my tics. I thought Lily was my friend, so I explained to her that I was diagnosed as a child and it's something that I struggle with a lot. She seemed okay with that answer and didn't bring it up again. Lily and I had a falling out around a year ago and we haven't spoken since. Well, I got upset at Amy and I asked her who told her that I had it in the first place, even though I kind of already knew it was Lily. But when I said that, she quickly tried to change the subject. Now, being extremely bothered by the fact that my diagnosis is being spoken about in conversations that don't include me, I decided to get onto her about it. I told Amy that if she thought I was faking, I could show her my diagnosis papers and records of all the tests they did on me as a kid to reach the conclusion that yes, I have Tourette's. She said I was getting defensive and rude and that I shouldn't shoot the messenger. Well, the next day, Amy's brother, who's in my math class, told me that his sister is still going around telling people that I'm faking Tourette's. He knows that Amy is a liar and just likes to look for attention, with him also telling me that this isn't the first time she's done something like this. I went up to Amy that day at lunch and I said to her, if you don't keep my name out of your mouth, we're going to have a serious problem. I don't need you talking about my medical history with complete strangers. If I hear that you keep spreading this garbage again, I'm going to get the deans involved. Well, this conversation apparently made her cry during the next period and have what she described as a bullying-induced autistic meltdown. So I got called to the counselor's office, and when I explained what happened, the counselor said I wasn't being tolerant enough and that if I didn't apologize to Amy, I would get written up and my mom would be called. So I went ahead and I apologized to Amy, but I told my mom exactly what happened. She said that I was not in the wrong and that Amy should have been the one to get punished. And while I agree with her, the school staff seems to think that I'm in the wrong and that I'm the bully. So honestly, am I the jerk in this situation? Because right now I'm very frustrated and I seriously don't know what to do. No, you're definitely not the jerk. If I was in your shoes, I would have done the exact same thing. In fact, if that was me, I would have made a much bigger scene than what you did. I think you did it the nice way, and and I can think of a lot of different ways to try and make this a lot more unpleasant for Amy, because she's literally doing exactly what her brother described. She's literally just trying to cause problems in your life all because she wants attention, and that is seriously obnoxious. Like, who in their right mind would go up to someone and be like, you're faking Tourette's, you don't actually have it. Like, that is so unbelievably toxic. Like, that goes well beyond any kind of like schoolyard bullying. That is like a violation of privacy, and that is not okay. Also, your friend Lily is a piece of garbage. Here you have someone you thought you could open up to, just for her to use it against you when you two have a falling out. Like, she seriously is a massive piece of garbage. So personally, if they want to play this whole, oh, you gotta be more tolerant game, then in my opinion, if I was in your shoes, I would escalate this even further. I would personally try to get my parents involved and try and have them escalate this as far as possible, because what you did is not bullying. You literally stood up for yourself regardless what the staff says, because Amy is 100% in the wrong. She is spreading false rumors about you and disparaging your character literally for no reason. That is unacceptable, and in my opinion, you have every right to defend your good name. My entitled aunt made an awful assumption that I had spent my inheritance foolishly on a vacation to Hawaii, and I've honestly never been more blown away by someone's entitlement in my life. Here's what happened. Okay, so I just remembered this and I thought I would share this online. This happened in 2004 during the height of the airline fare wars. I was 41 years old and my boyfriend was 44 at the time. In January of that year, my boyfriend called me at work. He had found a round-trip non-stop ticket to Hawaii for $99 each, and he could book it for the first week in June. I checked with my boss and all he said was to bring back some souvenirs. So we decided to book the flight. It was up to me to get the hotels and to set up any fun stuff that we wanted to do. Now, I had told my mother, who was very excited for me, as I had never been on a real vacation. My mother was in the end stages of colon cancer, although I did not know this at the time, and I was worried, what if something happened while we were gone? Well, we let her sister know about the trip when my mom went to stay with her during her final days, and she was completely fine with it. Well, my mom passed away in April, and being the only child, I got a sizable inheritance. It wasn't life-changing or anything like that, but it was enough for me to upgrade a few things that we had planned to do. Her middle sister was happy we were still going and said that it's what my mom would have wanted. Well, enter the youngest sister. I don't remember when she found out or who told her, but it was after the funeral. And that sister went ballistic. She said she thought it was strange that all of a sudden we decided to go to Hawaii on my inheritance and basically accused me of blowing through my mother's money. I told her that we had been planning this trip since January, long before my mom passed away, and I didn't really spend very much on the fun stuff. She still thought that we should cancel our trip out of respect, and when we didn't, she badmouthed me to the rest of the family. And what was the fallout to that, you might be asking? Well, everyone, including her husband, basically told her to get over herself. And I'm honestly still blown away after all these years that she would act like that towards me and make those wild assumptions. Yeah, this is a classic case where people should really just mind their own business. Like, this aunt came out of nowhere and decided, yeah, you blew all your money on a trip to Hawaii. Why would you do that? You're such a terrible kid. Now you need to cancel it because I say so. Like, that is such a weird, grandiose assumption, and it's all so ill-informed. And also, the rest of your family is completely right. Your mom absolutely would have wanted you to go on this trip to Hawaii. She wouldn't have wanted you to like stop your trip and not go altogether. She would have been like, yes, please go and enjoy yourselves. So yeah, this entitled aunt was really just being very foolish because she made assumptions literally based off of nothing. Am I the jerk for not wanting to go to my brother's wedding? All because my wife wasn't invited. Because right now I feel very torn, and at this point I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So I am scheduled to go on a work trip, and it's in the country where my family lives. I've been talking with my family about my potential trip and said the initial plan was to be there for a week, but that may change due to my new job and projects that I have. I had a flight booked, but I recently found out a couple of weeks ago that the reason my family wanted me to come early is because my brother is getting married. It's a small thing and it has not been planned for months. It would have remained a secret if he didn't tell me, and the reason they didn't want me knowing is because my wife isn't invited due to family conflicts. His wedding is on a Saturday, and my plan was to fly in on the weekend before my work trip. Ultimately, my wife not being invited made me uneasy, and I haven't spoken to him about it yet, but now I have to postpone my trip a few days and leave during the week instead. Him and my wife haven't spoken in years, and the last interaction was not good, and with part of my family that was also the case. The issue now is that I most likely will not be able to make it, and I tried to be as upfront as possible in the beginning due to my new job and work commitments that this particular weekend may may not work out. He did try to find some time when I would be there, but I said it wouldn't work out. I know he'll be disappointed, but I also don't want to go if my wife isn't invited, as I think it's highly disrespectful. I totally get that he wants me there, but steps could have been taken beforehand to try and help solve the family issues we have so that my wife at least was invited to it and not just me behind her back. It looks like I will have to miss it, but ultimately I think it's for the best. So honestly, am I the jerk in this situation? Because at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. No, I don't think you're the jerk at all. Like, the way they're going about with this wedding kind of seems super sketchy in my opinion. Like, it really seems like they're trying to avoid your wife at all cost, and they're trying to do this behind her back almost on purpose. Like, who would say, oh yeah, we're getting married, but then not tell anybody about it? Like, wouldn't that be like a really joyous and like exciting moment in your life? Like, you would think they would want people to know so they could show up, or at least find like a good group of people that would be there for the wedding itself. So no, this seems super sketchy, and I would not go to this wedding either if I was in your shoes, because the way your family's treating your wife is honestly inappropriate, and I do not think that you should put up with that in the slightest. An entitled, sketchy landlord tries to completely ruin the life of one of his tenants, demanding that this restaurant owner pay thousands of dollars to the landlord, all so he can get out of the building that he's currently renting from. So I decide to step in and get revenge on this landlord, inevitably putting this guy in his place in a way that he literally never saw coming. And I've honestly never been more satisfied getting back at somebody in my life. Here's what happened. Okay, so generally speaking, landlords are kind of jerks, and I think this is something that everybody just knows. But if you think residential landlords are bad, they're nothing compared to commercial landlords. Landlords of commercial buildings are some of the cruelest, nastiest people I've ever come across. And this revenge tale is about a commercial landlord and how I dealt with him. So, back in the 90s, sometimes I'd go for lunch at this restaurant in the basement of our building. The place was called The Vault because it had a massive bank vault that had always been there, dating back to the days before the place was turned into a restaurant. The vault was so huge that they could seat a couple of tables in there, and you could eat dinner surrounded by rows of old gleaming safe deposit boxes. One day, I was there for lunch and the owner took me inside. The guy said to me, "The landlord is driving me nuts." But I said, well, the landlord is driving everybody nuts. For reference, I was a subtenant in the same building, sharing space with an older lawyer that we will call Aaron. Aaron is not his real name. And trust me, this landlord was always causing us problems. I had already had a few run-ins with him, and we hated each other on sight. In most jurisdictions, commercial landlords don't need court orders to get you out. Instead, they just change the locks, and you find out about it when you show up and your key doesn't work. Every time our landlord had a dispute with anyone, which was really often, he would always threaten to change the locks. The restaurant owner continued, "He keeps demanding all this stuff for extra rent, and it's really weird because a lot of it is really old." At this point, the restaurant owner showed me a letter, and it showed the landlord had served on him earlier that day. So I looked over the demand, and I read a list of expenses for things such as snow removal and parking lot repairs, as well as common area flooring, and all kinds of garbage going back for years. I read it all the way to the end, and there it was, the usual clause saying he was going to change the locks if the tenant didn't pay this and do that. I then asked him and I said, "From the wording of the demand, it looks like you've been fighting this for a while. Why did you wait before consulting a lawyer?" The guy looked at me and said, "Well, I asked one of the lawyers that I know, and he said it was hopeless." He then told me the lawyer's name, and it was a guy that I knew from a really awful estate practice, who basically resorted to taking little legal aid cases just to keep the lights on when the market tanked in '89. I then asked him, "Well, did you do something to make the landlord hate you? Because this is a bit over the top, even for jerk landlords." He then told me that this guy knows that he's moving his restaurant, and the landlord thinks that now's the time to grab as much money as possible before he goes. And to top it all off, he's getting all this grief over the vault inside the restaurant. So I asked him, "Oh, he won't let you take it with you?" But this guy said to me, "Are you kidding? It weighs almost 100 tons, and I definitely don't need it. But the lease says I have to remove it, and that I also have to restore the building to what it was before there was a vault. So that's gonna cost me a fortune. He says if I leave the vault behind when I move, he'll sue me." So I tell him to send his lease up to my office and I'll look it over. And once I finished my lunch and got back to my office, the lease was waiting for me there. And you know what? It was just as bad as the restaurant owner said. The lease was like a series of renewals and agreements, all based off of original documents, dating all the way back shortly after World War II, when a bank first leased the place
place and the vault was installed. Somehow, the landlord had suckered the restaurant into taking over a lease that basically left him liable to remove a bank vault at the end of term. But I thought to myself, okay, this is no big deal. The restaurant can default, and all the landlord can do is sue a shell company. But when I got to the last page of the lease, there was a guarantee clause. The restaurant owner had personally guaranteed the lease, and he was on the hook for removing a vault weighing 100 tons and then fixing the place up. So yeah, this really would cost a fortune. I mean, the case was hopeless, of course. I mean, that was obvious right away. But then I thought about the jerk landlord and all of his demands and his threats and the rent hikes, and I asked my brain to do me a solid, which I promptly did. So I picked up the phone and I called the restaurant owner. He says to me, I'm screwed, right? I mean, you're calling me to say there's no way out. I mean, that's what the commercial lawyer said to me, but I just had to ask. I said to him, listen, I can save you, but it's gonna cost some money. The guy asked me how much, and I explained that it's gonna cost $5,000 in legal fees and another G note for the agent. He then asked me, agent? What kind of agent? And that's when I clarified, I need a real estate agent. If you send me up a check that's certified, I can take care of the rest. Well, the check hit my desk in less than an hour, and that's when I went to Aaron's office. I said to him, I need a real estate agent. And after clarifying that I'm not buying or selling a house, and after sharing a space with this guy for almost 5 years, he knew that something was going on. He said to me, you're pulling one of your stunts again, aren't you? And I say to him, yes, but it's nothing that will get you in trouble. Aaron looked at me and said, I know a guy. And trust me, Aaron knew all kinds of guys. And that's one of the reasons he eventually got disbarred. But he knew a guy and he gave me the agent's name and number, and the next day I paid the agent a visit. I told him what I needed, and we agreed to the terms as I gave him some papers and the cash for his fee. Fast forward a few days and I was again at the vault for lunch. The owner saw me walk in and greeted me himself. He said to me, the landlord is here. I asked him, wait, he's here? Why? He said to me, oh, for lunch, just to be a jerk. Let's sit in the vault room so I don't have to look at his face. He took me to the vault room, and with the door almost completely closed, we had a consultation while we ate pasta and drank some red wine. I look at the restaurant owner and I say that we're making a demand on the landlord. It was then that I pulled a document out of my briefcase and I passed it to him while I sipped my wine. I said to him, we're demanding that this jerk landlord release all the restaurant equipment and all of its fixtures. The ovens, the freezers, the ventilation, literally everything that you need to run a restaurant. It was then that the restaurant owner said, well, the lease exempts all that stuff. He can't stop me from taking what I want. The only thing matters is the vault, and of course I don't want that. I looked at him and I shook my head. I said, you need the vault, and we're demanding that he release the bank vault as well. We're insisting that he let you take it out within 7 business days. Now, the restaurant owner at this point really did not believe me. He said to me, do you really think you can be the landlord with reverse psychology? Do you really think if you treat him like a 2-year-old, you can manipulate him into doing what you want? But I said to him, well, we'll find out soon. He's had the demand for a few days now. At this point, the restaurant owner dropped his wine glass and it shattered on the marble floor. He then said to me, wait, you already gave it to him? And when he said this, he got up, swung open the vault door, and called for the waiter to clean up the mess. It was then, once the vault door was opened, that I said to the restaurant owner, okay, let's see what the landlord has to say. And it was then that I walked over to the landlord's table. Now, the landlord in question was a big, beefy man with a big appetite. He sat alone, eating wolfishly and with his hands. I looked at him and I said, my client needs an answer today. The landlord looked up at me as he chewed noisily. I said to him, I'm the vault's lawyer. I gave you a demand the other day and my client needs an answer right now. He needs the vault for his new place and he's got to make arrangements. The landlord says to me, your client can forget about the bank vault. And he said this while he wiped his massive greasy hands on an already soiled napkin. I said to him, you can't do that. Now, my shock was feigned, but the restaurant owner's jaw dropped for real. The landlord then laughed at us. I'm the landlord. I could do whatever I want. I said to him, okay, well, I'm gonna need that in writing because my client might sue you. Sue all you like, the landlord told me. Sue till you're blue in the face. He then told me that I would have a formal response by the end of the day, and then he told me to go away and let him finish his lunch. When the letter arrived from the landlord, claiming ownership over the bank vault, I brought it downstairs and I showed it to my client. And trust me when I say this, my client was absolutely blown away. He said, how in the world did you do that? But I just looked at him and I said, trade secret. The following month, the restaurant moved out and the place was empty. And that was too bad because I always liked eating at the vault. The restaurant is now at a new location about 20 minutes away. They still still call the place the Vault, and they preserve the vibe of the old place. It was very similar, except they didn't have the bank vault. The bank vault itself, all 100 tons of it, was right where it always had been, right in the basement of the building where I rented space. I showed up for work a little after that when Aaron came looking for me. He said to me, "The landlord's looking for you." I say to him, "Oh yeah, about what?" Aaron said to me that this guy is really angry with me because his deal fell through. I ask him, I'm like, "Deal? What do you mean?" He says to me, well, he was supposed to rent the place downstairs to a new tenant, which was a bank or a credit union or something like that, and they were supposed to come in to sign a lease, but they didn't show up. So I looked at Aaron and I said to him, "Okay, so what's that got to do with me?" Which just so happens to be the same thing I said to the landlord when he managed to track me down a couple of days later. "I know you were behind this," he said, his jowls quivering. "I know it was you. That offer from the agent, it was absolute garbage. Just some kind of trick to make me keep the vault. Also, your client could sneak out of the place and leave a bank vault behind. I'm gonna sue you." It was then that I said that if you're looking for counsel, I think I'm gonna have to declare a conflict. He then says to me, "I'm gonna sue that restaurant and that agent, and then I'm gonna sue you." And after he said that, he stormed off. But here's the thing, the landlord never sued us. I mean, of course he didn't. He didn't have a contract to sue on, only a vague letter of intent that I had drafted, just enough to hook a greedy landlord who was used to having his way. The offer that he had received was non-binding, incapable of acceptance without the signing of a formal lease, which of course never got signed. When I left Aaron's place a year later, the downstairs was still unoccupied, with a sad "for rent" sign sitting in the window, which looked like it was starting to fade. And I'm honestly so glad I was able to get back at that landlord who made my friend's life a living nightmare. Yeah, it really does sound like that landlord got exactly what he deserved. Like seriously, what he was trying to do to that restaurant owner was so sketchy. He basically not only tricked him into having that bank vault, but he also nearly tried to make him take it out of the building itself. And that seriously would have cost so much money. So it's really nice that the original poster stepped in and basically saved this guy's life, because otherwise he would be paying literally a small fortune just to have that stupid vault removed. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for telling my friend that she doesn't get to have an opinion about my cooking skills, all because she is poor? Because right now I had a massive falling out with my friends, and at this point I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so my best friend Layla and her partner Ryan were over for dinner this evening. Layla and Ryan are not their real names. I enjoy cooking, and tonight's dish was a seafood pasta with garlic bread and a veggie side dish. Having Layla and Ryan over for dinner is a semi-frequent occurrence, but they typically don't contribute anything to our meals. The reasoning is, for starters, they're struggling financially, and secondly, neither of them are very good at cooking. If they do bring something, it's usually drinks or a store-bought side dish, something like potato salad or mac and cheese or something like that. But even that, in and of itself, is incredibly rare. This has not ever really bothered me, because hanging out is always a good time, and I'm understanding of their financial situation, as well as their preference to not cook. My partner and I live very comfortably and can't afford to feed guests for dinner every so often, so it really has never been an issue until tonight. I usually like to cut shrimp in half when I'm incorporating it into pasta, because I feel it mixes in way better that way. And this is just a personal preference. I don't claim to be a master chef, I just like cooking, and that's the way that I've always done it. Well, Layla really starts getting on my case about not serving the whole shrimp with the pasta. It started out as a lighthearted banter, but quickly became extremely annoying. She would say stuff like, "Oh, someone's feeling stingy tonight. I hope I don't get hungry later. I've never seen pasta served with cut up shrimp before." Now, I eventually got fed up, and I said something along the lines of, "Oh, that's a really interesting take, considering that I know you've never cooked shrimp ever in your life, and you probably can't afford to either. You don't work, Ryan doesn't have a real job. You guys come over here for free food and then complain about it? No, I'm done." And honestly, the way I said this was just word vomit, and it was all followed by a very awkward silence. They very shortly left after that, and I texted Layla an hour later and I apologized for what I said. She apologized as well, but honestly, I'm still really mad. I'm starting to feel like they're freeloaders, and it just feels really icky knowing that they come over here and eat well pretty often, and my partner and I never get anything in return. I know that we're in different financial situations, but there are ways to make an effort offered without spending a lot of money. Layla suggested that we do dinner again next week, assuming that we're all good after we both apologized. But I responded and basically said, I think I'm gonna pass on that. She then says to me, oh, so are we too poor for you now? And I just responded by saying yes. Now, it's obviously not entirely that, but the whole thing left a bad taste in my mouth. And now I don't even want to talk to her. My partner thinks I'm being harsh, but I honestly don't know. Because right now, I really feel used. And at this point, I don't know what to do. Okay, seriously, I'm gonna say that everybody kind of sucks in this situation, because not only was Layla's attitude towards you really just weird and very entitled, but also the way you responded to her in both situations really was not okay either. Like, it sounded really bratty and really just rude overall, and I think the both of you really need to figure your stuff out, because I think the both of you really are in the wrong in this scenario. And the fact that you doubled down and basically confirmed that she is too poor for you, in my opinion, is not making any of these matters any better. My entitled manager refuses to allow me to work from home, especially since I had a fever and a sore throat, claiming that this needs to be pre-approved from a manager and that she wasn't willing to let me stay home. So I decided to maliciously comply and instead chose to take a sick day, forcing her to reschedule all of my appointments, all because she was unwilling to let me work from home. And I've honestly never felt better about getting back at this lady in my life. Here's what happened. So this happened at my old job, and I was reminded of it today, so I thought I would share it on the internet. In my old job, we had a great boss and hybrid work. If we had any reason not to come into the office, we would just send him a message, and then an extra remote day would be approved. But unfortunately, he was let go, and we got a boss who was the exact opposite of her predecessor. This happened a few weeks ago after our old boss was let go, and his boss became our new boss. One morning, I wasn't feeling well. I was too sick to travel to the office, but not too sick to work from home. I had a couple of remote meetings with customers, so it was just easier to me to work while being a little sick than try to reschedule. I spoke with my boss on Slack, and our conversation was like this. I said to him, "Good morning, I have a sore throat and a slight fever. I'll be working from home today, so no need to reschedule anything." My boss then said to me, "Our employer handbook clearly states that remote days are Tuesday and Thursday, and exceptions need to be pre-approved by the manager." Now, when I heard this, I was angry. Is she really trying to force me to the office even while I'm sick? I mean, what is her motivation? But then it hit me that it simply doesn't matter. So I say to her, "Oh, I'm sorry, that's true. I have a sore throat and a slight fever. I'm unable to come to the office, so I'm taking a sick day. Could you ask someone to reschedule my meetings with the customers since I'm recovering at home at least for today? The employee handbook states that I can take 3 sick days in a row without a doctor's note, but I'm willing to make an exception if you want to and get one. Is that something that you would want?" After I said this, I was left on red for 10 minutes. She started typing, deleting the text, only to then start typing and then delete it once again. She was active in our chat for the entire 10 minutes until I finally got a response. My boss said to me, "No, that won't be necessary. I'll ask someone to reschedule those meetings. Get well soon." Now, my colleagues almost passed away from laughter when I told them why I'm having a sick day and not just working from home. Now, our boss didn't like me after that, but trust me, the feeling was mutual. I later left that company for a new job, but not before that lady was fired. Wow, how annoying can you possibly get? Like, seriously, the original poster is willing to work from home even though they're sick and they have a fever. Like, seriously, if you have the option, why not just let them work from home? And it's so funny to me that this boss is trying to quote the handbook and she's like, "Oh, you need manager approval for that." But it's like, lady, you are the manager. You could easily just approve this right now and it could be all done. But instead, she just wanted to be weird about it and have some kind of weird power trip over the situation. So truly, I think the original poster did the right thing, because if she's not willing to let you work from home while sick, then she can deal with rescheduling all of your appointments as you decide to take a sick day. An entitled jerk insults my wife, gets incredibly angry at the bar staff and the servers around him, and eventually gets banned from the restaurant we were going to. And honestly, I'm so glad this guy never gets to come back ever again, because he truly was incredibly obnoxious. Here's what happened. A couple of months ago, my wife and I were at a restaurant sitting at a table behind the bar. Towards the end of the night, a younger guy starts shamelessly hitting on one of the female servers. Well, an entitled jerk next to him was loudly both encouraging the young dude and injecting politics into every single conversation. So after watching all of this go down, we decided to file a complaint with the bartender, who was doing his best to manage the situation diplomatically. After about 30 minutes to an hour, it doesn't stop, and the bartender cuts off the young man and calls the owner. Now, the young guy actually apologizes, while the entitled jerk says something along the lines of, "You're the only one saying that because you have the
spots for the server. My wife then leans over and goes, "We've listened to the whole conversation and none of this is appropriate." This entitled jerk then stands up, spins around, and flips off my wife. And then he screams out, "F you." I then stand up and I say that's not appropriate either. As he turns to me, the bartender gets between us. This entitled jerk flips my wife off again and tells her to get lost and to sit back down. The bartender promptly cashed out this entitled jerk and told them both to leave as soon as they were done. Well, this entitled jerk walks out yelling his own name and that he will not be disrespected. A few days ago, we heard that this entitled jerk tried to come back in. The bar manager was working and politely told him he's not welcome in after what happened. So this entitled jerk left without incident, but posted a 1-star review, accusing the bar of over-serving friends and regulars, even though he was a regular, to the point of putting other people in danger. And he claims to have contacted the local liquor authority over this supposed over-serving. Well, the local liquor authority takes these sorts of claims very seriously. So the dude is literally, if he is serious, trying to get the place shut down, all because people just didn't want to deal with his entitled garbage. And honestly, I just hope I never have to deal with him ever again. Yeah, the entitled jerk of this story seriously was crossing so many lines. He was not only encouraging this young guy to hit on this female server, but he was also just being so obnoxious. Like, I know if I was at that bar, or at least in the original poster's shoes, I would have done the exact same thing. I definitely would have reported him and absolutely spoken up the second he tried to lie. And you know for a fact he's only trying to get this place shut down all because he got kicked out. It's not because anything actually bad is happening. It's all because he got put in his place and embarrassed by pretty much everybody around him. And in my opinion, I think the bar did a great job by banning this guy because this guy was clearly not a good person. My entitled brother demands that he's gonna take my dog on a fishing trip, claiming that he deserves to have time with this dog, all because he was the original owner. But after picking up his slack as well as taking care of this dog when he left it alone and basically did nothing for him, I decided to run away to my fiance's place in order to prevent my brother from taking my dog without my permission. And I'm honestly so frustrated by this situation that right now I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so for a bit of context, I'm a 31-year-old female and I have a man-child entitled brother who's 26 years old who lives in the house that I co-own with my mom. My mom's told him that he has until May 31st to move out. I've been anxiously waiting for him to leave, doing my best to bide my time, but I have finally reached the end of my rope and it's over something that I'm not sure is the straw or the log that broke the camel's back. Last night while I was in bed, my entitled brother informed me that he would be taking my dog Spot for 3 days on some fishing trip. I told him there's no way he could do that, and he said he wasn't asking, he was telling me. He said he's my dog too, and that he is entitled to take him wherever he pleases. But here's the thing though, my entitled brother demanded a dog, and I begged my mom not to do it. He had one previously, but he neglected it, and my mom ended up rehoming it, and he never let her hear the end of it. But of course, she caved and the same problem persisted. He just never took care of Spot. I ended up taking over his care. I paid for Spot's vet bills, I fed him, I took him to get groomed, etc. With things eventually coming to a head when we had to move in with family members, and they said we were not allowed to bring a dog. My entitled brother didn't do anything to find Spot a new home. Apparently, it was all my problem. I found him a foster home where I visited him every day after my college classes ended, and was able to get him back 2 years later when we finally had a place to live again. Additionally, when I moved out of my house for a year, Spot went along with me. Spot sleeps with me every night and has my name on all of his records. He's now 10 years old and has arthritis. He takes meds for his hips and his stomach and frequently needs bathroom breaks. And to top it all off, he hates the water. So when my little brother said he wasn't asking me, he was telling me, I knew that Spot would be miserable and possibly in pain for that whole trip. He didn't ask or even mention taking Spot before, and Spot is due for a refill on his pills tomorrow. And had I known this information, I would have taken the refill a lot sooner. I tried telling him that Spot needs a lot of care, and he said, yeah, so just give me everything he needs. And I was so irritated. You wait until the night before to tell me this? Then he said something that made my blood run cold. He said to me, I could have just taken him and let you panic, but I was being nice, telling you ahead of time. And honestly, that's what did it for me. I don't know why, but every alarm bell went off in my head. I grabbed my purse, I put on my slippers, and I told Spot to get in the car. I drove to my fiance's house and I slept here last night. I was going to move into my fiance's house this summer, but now I'm asking myself why in the world I'm waiting. Everyone online keeps asking me why I stay at home, and right now I can't remember any
reasons I had before. I am seriously just so done. My mom is staying out of it right now, and I'm honestly glad, because I genuinely don't care what she has to say. I know she doesn't want me to go, but I just can't take my entitled brother's little power trips. He can do whatever he wants to the house, punching holes in the walls, kicking the appliances, calling the house a dump, but I draw the line at him taking my dog without my permission. That's my baby, and I'm not just gonna stand by while he does whatever he wants with my pet when I explicitly told him no, which is something he very rarely hears. Because right now I am so frustrated, and at this point I seriously don't know what to do. You did the right thing by getting away from that guy and taking the dog with you. I don't know who your brother is, but he sounds like an entitled jerk. It seems like he's sitting there trying to take advantage of you and your mom and basically live in this house for as long as possible. And that's super toxic. There's no good excuse for that. So truly, I really hope you're able to get away from this guy sooner than later, because based on what you've described, this guy sounds like an absolute nightmare. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for telling my son that I think he's taking advantage of his girlfriend? Because right now he is very upset with me, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so my son has a baby with his ex-girlfriend. The child is 2 years old, and I don't want to go into too many details, but she baby-trapped him, and it was a very toxic relationship. There was a massive issue with the paternity of my grandson, but I'm very proud of how he dealt with the situation. He never stopped loving and caring for the child, usually on his own, even when he wasn't sure if the baby was his. My son is now dating a much nicer girl that we will call Grace. Grace is not her real name. She is the best friend of my youngest son. Grace loves children. She adores my grandson and often calls him her baby. My grandson likes her too, and it's all very adorable. I've known Grace for a long time, and I think she's just perfect. The issue is that my son has started to give her a lot of childcare responsibilities. My grandson's biological mother is hardly involved, and my son is usually co-parenting with her parents instead of her, so we have our grandson most of the time. Once, Grace spent the night in the hospital with my grandson while my son was studying for an exam, and it seems like her life is slowly starting to revolve around my grandson, as well as his naps, his feeding schedule, etc. Every free moment she has from college and work is spent with my grandson. I don't want to interfere, but I'm gonna be realistic. They have only been together for a year, and what if they don't work out in some kind of way? Then my grandson will be attached to someone he won't see anymore. Additionally, she is very young and needs to live her life instead of being a mom so young. Last week, my grandson was sick, and my son had returned from work to come and check on him. Grace was cuddling with him at this point, as she had been with him the whole day. Now, my son tried to take him, but he wanted to stay with Grace, so she said she would stay up with him and call out of work the next day. This is also not the first time she's missed work or school to care for my grandson. Grace took him upstairs, and my husband made a comment about how my son didn't need to try so hard with his ex-girlfriend anymore, especially when it comes to getting her to be a parent, when Grace was right here being his mother. My son then said Grace was a godsend because without her, he would get no sleep. Well, I took him aside, and I told him that I thought he was taking advantage of her and her time. He asked me what I meant, and I told him that at 19 years old, he was partying and having a blast every weekend, but Grace was busy caring for a sick child that wasn't even hers. I pointed out that she was missing out on work and school for him, and my son got upset and very angry with me. He also said it was good that she wasn't partying because it wasn't good or safe to do anyways. He then took Grace and his son back to his place and hasn't let me see my grandson ever since. My husband thinks I was out of line because Grace is helping our son through something difficult, and I'm starting to feel kind of bad. My son wants an apology, and he wants me to promise not to bring this up to Grace and give her any ideas. So honestly, am I the jerk in this scenario? Because right now, I seriously don't know what to do. Okay, I'm gonna be completely transparent because I seriously think the original poster didn't do anything wrong. It really seems like your son is absolutely taking advantage of Grace's time. He's basically just handing his son off to Grace and saying, okay, here you go, and then he goes off and does pretty much whatever he wants, instead of, I don't know, taking care of his son and making his ex-girlfriend step up and be a mom. Like, this all seems really backwards, and I think Grace is kind of stuck in the crossfire. So no, I don't think you're the jerk at all. I think your son absolutely needed to hear that, whether he likes it or not. And sure, you can apologize for hurting his feelings, but in my opinion, it's not about Grace knowing how you feel. It's about your son doing the right thing. And that thing, in my opinion at least, is taking more time to take care of his son. An entitled mother uses grandma's cancer to try and guilt trip her son to essentially force him
him to coming over for Christmas dinner before it's too late to see Grandma ever again. But in reality, Grandma's doing fantastic, the chemo is working, and she is a strong woman. And now, nobody trusts this entitled mother anymore, and she's no longer invited to dinners with anyone in the family. Here's what happened. Okay, so this all happened at Thanksgiving this past year, but I never considered posting it online until recently. I've been dating my boyfriend for over 3 years now, but this story is about his entitled aunt that we will call Janet. Janet is not her real name. Janet has 2 kids, Andy and Marie, also not their real names. Janet has always been the most drama at every family gathering. She must be the center of attention and will throw a fit, cause a scene, or start crying to get there. Well, unfortunately, Janet's mother-in-law, who's my boyfriend's grandma, has cancer and has been getting chemo to try and treat it. As far as I know, it's been going very well, and she has seemed healthy, all things considered, with the family being aware of her health. During the family's Thanksgiving dinner, most of the family attended, including Janet, Andy, and his wife, and there, Andy informed his mom that he and his wife could only attend Thanksgiving, and that Christmas would be spent by his wife's family. Well, Janet did not take this well at all, and this is where the drama really starts to pop off. Janet then begins to try and use Grandma's cancer as some kind of guilt trip to make Andy and his wife also come over for Christmas. She straight up lies and says that the chemo isn't working and that they are just gonna stop trying and to just let her live the last bit of life without it. She says there will only be a few months left with Grandma and they should be there for her last Christmas. Janet even tried to guilt trip Andy with how much Grandma had supported him, as well as the rest of the family, and how he owed it to her to be there. Well, Andy was very uncomfortable, and he and his wife left soon after that, but they did make sure they saw Grandma before leaving for the night. Now, Grandma is still undergoing chemo, but is doing quite well, and she is a very strong woman. No one really knows why Janet would make up such awful lies, or why she thought no one else would realize, but word spread really fast, and as a result, Janet was not invited to Easter dinner. Wow, Janet literally is insane. Like, who would just make up lies like that just to try and get your way? And especially about a loved one who's already going through a really rough time right now. Like, that just doesn't make any sense, and that really is like super toxic. Not to mention the fact that Grandma apparently is doing great. Like, apparently she's a strong woman and the chemo is literally doing really well. So for Janet to be like, oh my god, you have to be there, it's not only really selfish, but it's also just really toxic. So it's really good that Janet was not invited to Easter dinner, and hopefully you can avoid her in the future. Because seriously, extended family like this really have a lot of things wrong with them, especially if they're willing to say such awful things about someone else in the family. My boyfriend won't stop stealing and devouring all of my snacks, even finding and eating the ones that I try to hide from him, leaving me with nothing when I'm trying to find something to eat. And at this point, I'm seriously so frustrated, and I now don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, to start things out, I'm responsible for purchasing groceries and any other food-related expenses for our apartment. This includes any Uber Eats or any like meal prep services that we utilize. In Ontario, right now with the price of groceries, that is no small expense. For example, a bag of grapes is $12 or is $20 for the smallest beef roast that Walmart carries. My partner and I crave salt more than we crave sweets, so occasionally I will purchase some salty snacks for my partner and I, and this is in the form of a couple of bags of chips that are about $4 to $6 each, or on the very rare occasion, 2 bags of popcorn from Cineplex for a special treat. Well, here's the problem as follows. I like to savor the snacks I buy when I have the opportunity to purchase them. If I buy a specific snack for myself, I like to have a couple of small bowls throughout the week because I don't know when I'll purchase them ever again. My boyfriend, on the other hand, tends to polish off any and all snacks that he can in a night or two, and once he finishes his snacks, he inevitably sets his sights to mine and polishes those off too. In fact, this week when I bought snacks on Saturday, I outlined which snacks were his and put aside 1 bag of chips, stating that that bag was specifically for me. I extra splurged this week and purchased a dip for my chips that I never buy anymore, because with rising cost of groceries, it's now priced at like $7 for a small container. My boyfriend ate 1 bag of chips Saturday and finished another one on Sunday. When I went to grab a small bowl of my chips tonight, the bag was missing. When I asked him about it, he said they were all gone. We live pretty much remotely and I only buy groceries once a week. When I told him that I was upset because I haven't even had a chance to have a bowl with my dip after clearly setting the expectation for him not to eat it, he told me to get over it and then got mad at me for being upset. We have lived together for the past 4 years and it's normal practice for him to finish my leftovers or eat off my plate, as I'm not a big eater, share. But sometimes I just want something that's mine, something that I don't want to have to share. I've tried hiding my snacks in the kitchen before, and he always just ends up finding them. I also don't like the idea of hiding things from my boyfriend, but a gal needs her snacks every once in a while. So honestly, ladies and gentlemen, and everyone else who has a snack stealing partner, how do you deal with them? How do you ensure you get a little snack when you're craving one? This isn't a situation that will make or break our relationship, but after 4 years, I'm at the end of my snacking rope, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Okay, first and foremost, I have to say that yes, I think you should hide pretty much everything you buy. This guy doesn't care about what is his or isn't his, and it seems like he's gonna eat everything within sight. And I can understand that like occasionally, like if this happened every now and then, I really wouldn't care that much, but it's the fact that he just blasts through everything in front of him, and he refuses to acknowledge that yes, he's the one doing this, and no, this is not okay. That alone is incredibly disrespectful. So first off, I would try to hide things, but if that doesn't solve any of the problems, then maybe it's time to like make a clear line in the sand and start buying separate groceries. Like it really sucks, you really shouldn't have to like hide stuff from him, but in my opinion, not only should you not feel guilty, but at this point it kind of seems necessary. He keeps eating everything in front of him, all without any kind of like remorse for like taking your food that you wanted. And that in my opinion is completely inappropriate, and he absolutely should know better. My entitled manager ignores my schedule and schedules me on days where I very distinctly told them I'm not available. So I decided to maliciously comply by choosing to ignore the schedule and acting as if I didn't see anything wrong with it. And as a result, I didn't get in trouble, but my manager absolutely did. And I've honestly never felt better about getting back at them in my life. Here's what happened. Okay, so this happened a few days ago at my work. I work as a monitor in a company that sells wholesale, and we have rotating schedules. So if we have activities outside of work, we have to notify them in advance so that we can adjust our schedule. It turns out that this is not the first time that they have told me that I should have given them more notice. So a week before the next week's schedules were made, I informed my leader about all my activities for the month. He clearly didn't like this, so he told me to send it to him in writing so he could remember and consider it for the schedules. And trust me, if it went down like that, then I wouldn't be here posting this online. I needed to rest on a Sunday because that day I had baking classes and to come in the morning on Tuesday. When I saw the schedule, I got angry. As always, she did what she wanted. She gave me my rest on Tuesday, and on Sunday, she left me in the afternoon from 2:30 until 11 o'clock p.m. But here's the thing, my baking class is from 10 o'clock until 5 p.m. So it was literally making me choose between my class and coming to work. Now, I was upset because this wasn't the first time that this has happened, and I always ended up trying to convince other classmates to change my schedule or just go on break so I could do my activities. I was tired of always looking for solutions for the things that she did wrong, and she also had the impotence to take her rest day on Sunday. Well, here comes my malicious compliance. I decided to pretend that I never saw the schedule, and I decided to miss Sunday. I hate uploading statuses on my WhatsApp, but I decided that this time it was a special situation, so I started uploading statuses from my baking class. When I saw that my leader saw my status, I knew that I had won. When it was around 3 o'clock in the afternoon, my boss, who is my leader superior, asked me straight up why I had been absent. I told her that I had not seen the schedules, and that since I did what the leader asked me to do, which was to notify her in time and sending my schedules in writing, I assumed that it had all been respected. I knew that I was going to ask my leader, but I also knew that she has a reputation as a liar, so I knew that she would try to twist things in her favor. So I sent a screenshot of the conversation in which I said in detail about my activities. She thanked me and didn't say anything else. And the next day, I found out that she got advised for that, and I got away with it without any repercussions. Then she tried to justify herself by saying that my boss had not approved the schedule, but it is all inevitably a lie. Now, I know they're not going to pay me for that day that I was absent, but it was completely worth it to watch her get scolded. And let's see if she understands that if they don't respect my schedule, I'm just going to be absent, and I'm not going to try and fix their nonsense anymore. Yeah, I can completely understand where the original poster's coming from, especially when you like very specifically tell your manager, hey, these are the days that I can and can't come into work, and then they turn around and do the exact opposite of what you discussed. Like, that is so frustrating, it's not even funny. So sure, what they did was like a massive gamble, but clearly it worked out in the end. And I think it all only worked out because you had everything in writing or some kind of proof to prove them wrong later. Because based on what you've described, this person is a very toxic manager. And you can bet, just like the way they tried to do it, they'll twist the words that you said any which way they can, also they could avoid any kind of punishment. Am I the jerk for not taking my neighbor's kid inside when they were lost at night night and choosing to call the police instead, because right now everybody in the neighborhood is calling me terrible names, and at this point I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, I want to start off by saying that I live in a regular neighborhood. I'm not really close to any of my neighbors. I have a very casual relationship with them where I might say hi every now and then, but then I just move on. And trust me, this will be important later on. Anyways, I was doing a grocery run, I parked my car, I got out, and I noticed a kid on her own wandering around, and I immediately recognized her as one of my neighbor's kids. It's 8 o'clock p.m. and I think she was like maybe 8 or 9 years old, so I call out to her to ask why she's out wandering around. She just shrugs at me and looks like she's been crying. I feel awkward and I call the non-emergency line. The operator asked for some context, and I explain how I just came back from the market, I parked my car, and I got out to my neighbor's kid near my lot. The operator told me to ask if she knew where her parents are, if there are any safe neighbors, etc. But the best I got out of her were some random mumbles and some shrugs. The dispatch operator asked if I could stay nearby until the authorities came, and I mentioned that I have groceries to put away, and she assured me that it would be no more than 10 to 15 minutes before someone would come by. During the awkward waiting, the child eventually went up to me and pointed to the grocery bag saying ice cream, but I shake my head and I say no. I tell the kid that we're waiting for her parents because I didn't want to tell the kid we're waiting for the police in case that scared her for some reason. She complains that she wants to use the bathroom, and I say she can wait until her parents come by. Eventually, an officer came, asked for information, went to the neighbors asking around, etc., and the officer asked if I had any snacks that could help calm the child down, but I just straight up said no. I stopped being involved the moment he arrived and I went about my night. Now, here's where I might be the jerk. I got a harsh knock on my door and answered the door to a woman who asked if I'm the one who reported her child to the police. I tried to explain myself, but she immediately went off on me for being a jerk. How apparently I could have taken her child in for just a little bit and contacted her. I pointed out that I don't even have her contact, and then suddenly she tries to give it to me, but I refuse, saying that I don't care about having her as a contact. She should not have let her child wander around at night. She then yells that her child snuck out through the garden gate, but I just shrug and say that I don't care, that's her problem. Well, right now I'm being bad talked around, as she keeps telling people that I called the police on a kid, which I mean I did, but it's not like I was getting the kid arrested. I just wanted her to be found. I'm being called a narc or a police caller of the neighborhood. I found this out when I was casually waving hello to one of my neighbors, and he said to me, "Don't worry, my grill follows the regulations, don't call the police on me." And he said this in a mocking tone. So honestly, was I the jerk for the way I handled this? Looking back, it may have been cold, but I was just trying to protect myself first. And now I feel really lost and I seriously don't know what to do. In my opinion, the original poster didn't do anything wrong. First and foremost, the only reason this lady wants you to have her contact information is because she's too lazy to be a good parent. Like, the original poster is not responsible for everybody else's kids in the neighborhood. And I feel the exact same way. There's no way I'm about to take in some random kid that I definitely don't know, that I've seen in my neighborhood maybe once or twice, simply because there's just no way I'm gonna allow that scenario to take place. Like, can you imagine the false accusations that can get thrown around so quickly if you do that? It would be one thing if I was really close with a family and these were like family friends or something like that. Like, then and only then would I be like, okay, sit in my car, we'll wait for the cops and we'll get you back to your parents. But this is a kid you don't even know. Like, this mom is delusional if she really thinks that you should take her kid in just out of some principle instead of, I don't know, calling the police. Because honestly, if I'm in that scenario, I'm 100% calling the police every single time. Because the fact of the matter is I don't know this kid. I'm not gonna take this kid in. Like, that is just weird and I don't want that in my life. So no, the original poster is not at fault. I think the mom in this situation is a terrible parent, and the fact that she got caught being a bad parent by the cops is what she's truly upset about, instead of actually being mad that the police were called. So I'm honestly so sorry you're dealing with this, and hopefully you don't have to deal with this lady ever again. An entitled Karen refuses to clean up after her pet's droppings in our apartment complex, claiming that everybody else does it around here, while also calling me entitled for calling her out for not doing what she's supposed to do. And I'm honestly still blown away by this interaction with this entitled Karen. Here's what happened. Okay, I want to start off by saying that I'm still trying to process an exchange I had this morning. I was sitting on my balcony having breakfast, and there was this woman I've never spoken to walking her dog. We've never spoken, but my roommate and I see her down there pretty much every day. If I were to guess, she's probably around our age, so either in her 30s like us, or maybe even in her 40s. We've never exchanged so much as a hello up to this point. Now, I really like my apartment complex. It's cute and pleasant
unpleasant to walk around, and the only thing that really sucks is when people don't clean up after their dogs. It's so freaking gross, and I hate when people don't do it. You're a grown-up who made a choice to have a pet. That comes with responsibilities that you have to keep up with. Now, most people around here do clean up after their dogs that I've seen, so we know that it's just a few rotten eggs. If I see people who don't look like they're doing it, I definitely call them out, which I know will come with some kind of risk, but like, come on, people. The response is sometimes just defensive, sometimes a bit of twisting the truth, saying things like, oh, I was just gonna go do it, but they all should know that they should be doing it. Anyways, this woman has her dog right up by our balcony, and my friend and I were chatting until I noticed the woman walking away without cleaning it up. So I said, in a tone more polite than the situation probably merited, excuse me, are you going to clean up after your dog? And it's then that this entitled Karen says to me in a snotty voice, no, I'm good, thank you. Well, when I heard that, I immediately burst out laughing. And this is not the kind where it's in good humor, because I couldn't believe the audacity. I said to her, wow, that's really pathetic, which is apparently more than what she expected me to do, because she came marching back. Now, I have to imagine that most people just don't call this woman out. For her to have that kind of immediate vitriol makes me think that she's kind of spoiled just in general and was angry that I had embarrassed her. But she clearly knew that I was right, because she just had to come back and double down. So she comes running at us with this kindergarten logic. She says to us, I'm not the only one who doesn't clean up after my dog. Lots of people don't clean up after their dogs around here. And I was like, okay, so what? How does that absolve you of adding to the problem? She keeps going on about how other people do it too. So I said to her, cool, then give me their names. Let's have a list because I don't see any of them right now. She then looked at me and said, open your eyes and figure it out yourself. I then said, well, that's what I'm doing right now. She eventually keeps shouting that she doesn't have to do anything that she doesn't want to, and that she doesn't care about what I think. So I was like, oh my God, I have never met such an entitled person. It's insane to me that you're getting this angry over someone expecting basic decency out of you. Then she says something that honestly really blew my mind. She looked at me and said, no, you're the entitled one. When this entitled Karen said that, I burst out laughing again. I said to her, I clean up after my animals. Me telling you I don't appreciate you leaving messes on our shared property doesn't make me entitled. You are a grown woman who knew what responsibilities she'd have when she got a pet. There are tons of other people who don't want to see your dog's droppings. You're not the main character of this story, lady. Now, at this point, I feel like this woman has never really been confronted beyond her first snarky response, and I have a bubbly and friendly tone normally, so she probably had expected to scare me or shock me into silence with that callous initial reaction, because right now she is practically melting down. She's trying to upset me while my friend and I are just laughing. She gave me a snarky, well, have a nice day, and I wished her the same in an equal tone, and then she waddled off. We did take a short video of her, sadly not of the incident itself, as we had to go grab our phones, and I plan to take it to the front office just to let them know what's going on. It's honestly only step one. I doubt anything will be done with just this, but this has been driving me crazy, and I'm ready to start holding rude people accountable. Fortunately, I can use the corporate offices if the people here don't start to put pressure on people who blatantly break their lease. It's right there that you have to clean up after your animals. I'm not trying to get anyone evicted, but I'm hoping she at least feels the pressure to act like a grown-up and take care of her stupid pets. Like, I would not cry if she got a fine or something like that. Seriously though, it's painful to me that people like this even exist. She was so confident that she was somewhat in the right that she didn't even try to lie about it. Like, lady, you aren't 12 years old, and the argument that other people do it is not gonna hold up in a court of law. Wow, that is some serious entitlement. Imagine letting your dog go to the bathroom all over the place, and then you don't even take the time to like clean it up. And then when someone confronts you about it, instead of being like, oh, my bad, let me get it real quick, you decide to be like, no, this is your problem. You're entitled for trying to make me do that. Like, that's crazy to me, and this Karen absolutely needed to be called out. So seriously, good for the original poster, because they handled this like a pro. They didn't let this lady get the best of them, and they shut her down by giving back the same energy that she was giving off. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My coworker constantly acts aggressive towards a select few people at our restaurant, and now I'm trying my best to figure out how to avoid her or just completely ignore her altogether, because I truly am very frustrated, and at this point, I'm seriously unsure of what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so I've been employed at a small restaurant for some time now, and there's one coworker who is one of our new hires. Man,
management expects us to train them, but she is nowhere near as skilled as the others who started at the same time as her. However, she's very good at pretending to work in front of the store owner and pretends to be very nice and committed in front of other staff members just to endear herself to them. Well, except for those that she thinks are too stupid to notice that she's useless, even when she isn't even trying to hide it. During work, depending on who's there, she makes it very clear that she considers this job to be beneath her. She suddenly disappears to the restroom without telling anyone, and then she'll return 20 minutes later. She hands out free food and drinks to customers for no reason, and will even steal food for herself. She never admits to even the smallest mistake that she makes, even though they aren't a big deal at all, and overall, she is very unreliable and doesn't do her part of the work. We work in very small teams, each shift of about 4 people. And you know what? I actually really wouldn't care that much if it wasn't for her attitude. A middle manager has asked her to do parts of her job that she seemingly sees as dirty or tiresome, so she has decided to bully her by going to the store owner and painting the middle manager as a mean person, which the store owner now believes because she only knows the new hire on her best behavior. She's also started acting aggressively towards me. I don't even give her instructions unless she seems to be completely in over her head, and this is because I don't want to end up like the middle manager. When our eyes happen to meet, she gives me the biggest death glare. She sighs right next to my ear and even violently threw herself against me and shoved me before running off, something that she's apparently done to the middle manager too. I've decided that her behavior is way too childish for me, and I will be ignoring and avoiding her as much as possible. So honestly, how can I go about doing this? Because at this point, I'm very frustrated and I seriously don't know what to do. Okay, so you have a few options in my opinion. You can definitely go with your option of saying, all right, I'm just gonna ignore them and avoid them as much as possible. But trust me, that's not gonna solve anything. It's only gonna give this person a license to keep bothering you and will only hinder your work as a whole. Like, you're always gonna be thinking about where this person is, or like how she's behaving, and like, do you have to deal with her today or anything like that. That sounds incredibly stressful, and I would not want to deal with that if I was in your shoes. So instead, if I was in this situation, I would get the middle manager and I would go with them to the main manager and explain exactly what's going on. I would not only expose her for being completely useless at work, but also for the fact that she violently threw herself against you. Like, she literally shoved you and then ran off. Like, I don't care what her motivation was. That is not something that you do to a coworker that you barely know. Now, if you were friends and like you hung out after work and you've known each other for a long time and you have this friendly repertoire where you like play around with each other, then fine, this might be explainable. It wouldn't be totally unexplainable, and it would be maybe like this fun thing that you do at work. But this is literally not that case. She just attacked you and then ran off like a complete weirdo, and that alone is completely inappropriate. Like, it starts with her shoving you and then it leads to like completely different directions that I just don't think are okay. So hopefully this gets better sooner than later, because what you're describing sounds absolutely obnoxious, and I know if I worked there, I would be miserable dealing with this lady on a daily basis. Am I the jerk for the way I talk to my neighbor, all because she's been acting weird around my husband? Because now, as a result, things have gotten really weird, and at this point, I'm really not sure if I overreacted. Here's what happened. Okay, so my family, namely myself, my husband, and my 2 daughters, live directly across from our neighbor who is, from what I remember, 6 months pregnant. For the sake of the story, we'll call her Sarah. Sarah is not her real name. Our neighbor grew close when her husband passed away 2 months ago due to a drunk driver. The entire neighborhood basically came to help. The community still does semi-monthly barbecues and stuff like that. Now, we know how it felt to have a parent that's absent. And while no, my husband did not pass away, he was still deployed when we were pregnant with our first. And yes, I know that is not the same thing as what she's going through. But regardless, we often checked on her, invited her over, and we would have conversations on how to handle being on your own while pregnant. For a couple of weeks now, she's been asking my husband to be her handyman. My husband has no issue with this, and neither did I until about a week ago. She asked my husband to help over the smallest things and barely talks to me anymore. Most times she'll knock and ask if my husband is home, and if I say no, she tells me to let him know she needs him and then just walks off. There's no talking, there's no having tea together, absolutely nothing. Now, I can admit I am a little bit jealous and I felt a little bit weird about this. It was like she was only wanting my husband around. I tried to push these feelings aside until the first incident occurred. Basically, she knocked on my door and handed me a covered plate of cookies. I got excited and started to thank her, stating how the girls love cookies. But she then interrupted me and told me that these were strictly for my husband. They were not for the rest of the family. Well, I then had a sour taste in my mouth, but I thanked her anyways. It made me feel like she was trying to have a
a big house and little house situation. I let my husband know what happened and how I felt, and he assured me that nothing was going on, but he also agreed that what she did was very disrespectful. So we agreed that he would stop coming over, and instead he would give her phone numbers of men he knows that do maintenance. Well, now she's been cold with us, which then leads us to the second incident. This happened when the community was having a barbecue in our neighborhood park. The children were running around and us adults were sitting with the lawn chairs talking about whatever. My neighbor piped up and said how she is grateful to us for helping her, and then said she's even grateful for me, even though according to her, it was strange how I basically forbade my husband from coming over to help her anymore. And when she said that, I got a little mad, like I was basically slapped by God himself. So I responded and said, well, baking a gift for my husband only and saying his wife and daughters aren't included is a bit strange as well. Pretty quickly, another neighbor changed the topic, and trust me, it was very awkward. Now, I'm sure there's gossip and other stuff going on right now. On one hand, I know she must still be grieving, and maybe she's just looking to have someone to be there for her. But on the other hand, I feel like the incident with the cookies and then the barbecue makes me feel disrespected. My husband is not happy with how I responded. He says it is not my job to check someone, and I should have just let her talk. So I guess I just need to know if I was a jealous jerk through all of this, because at this point, I'm honestly not sure what to do. Okay, so in my opinion, I don't think you're the jerk in this scenario, because I think what your neighbor did is very manipulative. I mean, they seriously made baked goods for your husband, and instead of being like, oh yeah, anybody can have it, she tried to make these stupid rules and be like, oh yeah, you can't have it, but only your husband can have it. And it's like, I'm sorry, that's really strange, and that's really just not okay. This is literally someone's husband you're talking about. You can't just dictate who can or can't eat those stupid baked goods. And then for her to make this big public display about it, and her to be like, oh yeah, thanks for the help, but thanks also for denying your husband coming to my house. Like that, in my opinion, was super inappropriate, and it's right about then that I absolutely would get upset as well. Because sure, she's grieving the loss of her husband, and I totally understand that, but the way she acted and the way she tried to embarrass you in front of everybody, in my opinion, absolutely deserved to get shut down. Because that is inappropriate, and you should not be forced to have your name dragged through the mud, all because of someone else's problems. Am I the jerk for telling my mom that I'll never let her husband adopt me, and that she just needs to get over it? Because at this point, they seriously won't let this issue go. And now I feel like I'm stuck between a rock and a hard place, because right now I really don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so to start things out, my parents broke up when my mom was pregnant with me. My dad was in the military when I was little, and when I was 5 years old, he came home all messed up from what he had seen, and he was never the same ever again. He ended up doing a lot of substances because medications and therapy weren't helping him, and he was doing really badly. I would see him cry a lot and hold his head, and I know he had flashbacks and relived stuff while I was there, but I never felt unsafe. Just really sad that my dad was hurting. My mom ended up suing for full custody and got more custody of me, but I still got to see my dad every other weekend. Now, my mom hated it and she tried to fight that, but the court-appointed therapist said that I should still have every other weekend with my dad. My mom got married to Dan when I was 9 years old. After they got married, the two of them sat me down and asked me how I would like Dan to be my dad legally, and that the three of us could all be a family. Now, when they said that, I told them that I already had a dad and I didn't want another one. We went back to court and I found out while speaking to the judge that it was because my mom had tried to sever Dad's parental rights and put in a petition for Dan to adopt me. The judge asked me how I felt about it, and I got so scared that he would do it, and I begged him not to. And I said that I didn't want Dan to be my dad, and I didn't want to lose my dad. Well, the judge listened and denied the adoption request. My mom and Dan still fight against me seeing my dad. Mom has taken my phone from me a few times, all because Dad and I would text during the week. When I was 12 years old, my mom told me that my dad had picked substances over me, and that now I have Dan who would never do that to me. She told me he would be a much better father, but I told her that Dan wasn't my dad, and no matter how much she hates Dad or thinks he's terrible, I just disagree because I love him, and Dan will never be able to compete with that. Dan has asked me himself a few times to let me adopt him, and he told me that he loves me and wants so badly to be able to look after me. He told me if anything happened to Mom, he would hate to see me live with Dad and be taking care of him. But I told him I would rather be with my dad than stay with him. You know, someone who isn't my dad. He got mad a couple of times, and a couple of other times he told me I was showing how young I was. So my mom decided to approach Dad and ask him to willingly give up his rights so that Dan can adopt me, and then she would let me call him once a week and see me once every 2
2 months. Well, dad said no, and mom just cursed him out. I waited until she was done, and I told her I'll never let her husband adopt me and she needs to get over it. She told me she cannot understand me dismissing a good man who loves me and would do anything for me, all over a man who can't get off illegal substances for me. I told her that Dan doesn't have to live with the demons my dad does. She told me I'll regret my decision in the future and that I'm being stubborn for no reason. So honestly, I really need to know, am I the jerk for the way I've been acting? Because right now, I seriously don't know what to do. I don't think you're the jerk for several reasons, but mostly for the fact that your mom and Dan have been basically trying to force you to get adopted by Dan. Like, that in and of itself is so inappropriate, it's not even funny. Like, you would think after the first few times of you growing up, where you blatantly say, yeah, I'm not gonna get adopted by Dan, they would eventually get the picture and be like, okay, it's just not gonna happen. But no, they have forced this issue for years at this point. They keep coming back to the judge, to you, even to your father, and they keep saying, okay, it's time to give up parental rights, almost using it as if it's some kind of like bartering chip for you to have more contact with your father. Like, that is crazy to me, and that is seriously such an unfair precedent to set. It really sounds like your father has a lot of things he's got going on in his life, and you at least know that you love him and you still want him to be in your life. So for your mom and your stepfather to act this way, honestly, is so intrusive and just incredibly rude. So no, you are definitely not the jerk, and the fact that your mom simply won't let this situation go, in my opinion, is incredibly inappropriate. My now ex-girlfriend says that I'm out of order for still expecting her to pay her half of the rent, despite the fact that she's moving out before our lease is over. And right now, I am very frustrated with this situation, because without her paying her half of the rent, I seriously don't know how I'm going to be able to afford this place. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So I've been with my partner for 3 years, and we've lived together for around a year and a half. The last few months or so, I have realized that I'm not happy in the relationship, and a lot of the effort seems to be one-sided. Whenever I've tried to talk to my partner about it, she gets defensive instead of actually listening to what I'm trying to say, or she will just dismiss what I've said and act like there's nothing wrong. I have tried multiple times over the last few months to talk about how I'm feeling and some of the concerns I have, and I've just been shut down every single time. After being dismissed yet again, I told her we needed to talk. I told her I wasn't happy in the relationship and that I think it's best if we break up. She asked me what had brought it on, and I pointed out the repeated dismissals of my concerns, and she denied it happening, but I told her it's best if we just end things. I do still love her, and I wish her the best and everything like that, but I don't want to be in a relationship with her anymore. Well, the issue came along when we started discussing living arrangements. I have no family or friends nearby that I could stay with, and we have 8 months left on the lease. We both transfer half of the rent to our landlord each month. All the bills are in my name. The cost to end the lease early is 6 months rent or the remainder of the lease, basically indicating whichever is smaller, but we wouldn't have that much money just to pay the lump sum. I told my girlfriend I was happy to take the couch for now and then look at getting a little bed for the spare bedroom, since the apartment is both of our homes. She said she would probably just move back home with her parents, but then said she would not be paying the rent and bills when she moves out. I told her while she might not be living here, she's still on the lease, so she still has to pay her half of the rent until we can find a roommate to move in after she's moved out. I said I would still be paying all of the utilities, but I can't afford the full price of the place on my own. She then said that she's not going to be paying for somewhere that she doesn't live, but I tried explaining that she's still on the lease for the apartment, so until we find a roommate for the spare room, she should be paying for her half. She again said that she won't be paying, and that I'm a jerk for expecting her to. So at this point, I'm really not sure what to do here, as this situation seriously has me very stressed out. Wow, your ex is absolutely ridiculous right now. She's very clearly on the lease, and she's gonna sit there and be like, oh no, I'm not gonna pay for it, sorry. Like, what a jerk. Why would she do that to you? Like, I understand you guys are breaking up or whatever, but at least be mature and try to be reasonable about this. Like, there's no reason to throw your ex under the bus all because you're trying to move out. It's also hilarious to me that she's trying to turn this around and be like, wow, you're such a jerk for doing this. It's like, dude, what are you talking about? You are literally on the lease. You have to pay your half of the rent. And it's ridiculous for the original poster to be expected to pay for all of this. So in my opinion, based on the way your ex-girlfriend is acting, it is definitely time to find a new roommate and fast. She is clearly trying to pull the rug out from underneath you, and she's trying to get out while the getting's good. And in my opinion, that is incredibly toxic, and you do not deserve that in the slightest. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. To finish listening to all
all the stories, check out the playlist at the top of the description. And if you want some chill music to put on in the background, check out easymode.com. If you like Am I the Jerk, subscribe to Am I the Genius. Everything will be linked down below in the description.